The year is 2035 and advances in technology have led to the creation of the world of connection. As realistic as the real world, NPCs with perfectly natural AIs, beautiful swordsmanship, and magic that could only be experienced in a game. All these things attracted more than 100 million people to the world of connection. A battle is taking place and several defeated soldiers are scattered up to the top of the staircase. Another soldier is wounded by several blades, making him scream in pain. The others watch in fear, afraid of being next. Bai Dohyun, nicknamed Crash, is their opponent, surrounded by a blue aura of energy. The knights surround him and one of them shouts for everyone to attack at once, taking advantage of him being alone. Thus, the end of the enemy of the Empire is declared. The masked man analyzes the situation for his next move. Suddenly, the swords begin to levitate, even those embedded in the fallen knights. Crash activates the psychokinesis class. Meanwhile, the knights charge forward, but he only needed to wave him his hand, and the swords launched their attack. With the command, the rain of arrows begins. The spears are in the air heading towards the enemy. However, the sinister masked man manages to stop them all. This leaves everyone impressed, and suddenly the arrows turn toward them and they desperately try to dodge. The rain of arrows falls upon the archers. In Crash's hand, he spins a weapon, stopping the movement of his kunai, ready for any attack. He rushes toward the commander, and without any mercy, he cuts the man down. The hooded man turns away, leaving the lifeless man fallen to the ground. The remaining team is terrified by the bizarrely strong psychokinesis ability. Suddenly, a knight notices something wrong. The spears and weapons are in the air, all directed against them with their sharp blades. Their eyes widen, knowing that this is the end. The hooded man's hand is in the air, and with his psychokinesis, he sends the weapons against the knights. The place is illuminated by the light entering through the window. On the ground, the men lie fallen and footprint marks stained with red fluid form a trail. The powerful Crash walks away from there. There is no one left to stop him. He removes his hood and mask while searching for something. The man realizes that someone is still alive there. The holiness lies on the ground and says that in the end, this is it. Crash's eyes go to the necklace, finally finding what he was looking for. Even trembling, the holy man tries to speak and says that it was told by God that saviors will come to this world. However, the hooded man does not care and goes to grab the necklace. The holiness grabs his arm, asking why there are only fighters there, and asks why the outsiders brought chaos to this world, burning cities, eliminating innocents, and even enslaving people. Crash then calls the old man, and asks not to blame him but rather the guild that conspired with the Empire. Suddenly, he realizes that the guild stragglers are already there. He then turns his back and climbs the stairs, and the holiness asks him not to forget that everything will happen according to God's will. All of them will pay for what they have done. Not caring about the words, Crash approaches something resembling a tomb, and brings the stone closer to the necklace he took from the holiness. The interaction causes magic circles to appear, and the large stone moves away, opening a secret passage. The man in black descends the staircase following the information. He is shocked by what he sees. Objects are floating in the air. He believes these are the first mythical items in the entire connection. 5 years ago, the great guilds entered into a conspiracy with the Empire and destroyed the world. And everything he did in the last 6 months was for this, because an NPC lamenting is nothing. The great guilds took control of the connection, and he is the only solo player remaining in the top 100. Crash hides the items because he knows that if they find out he took them first, the guilds will be furious. He is about to leave when something catches his attention. There is an item on the ground that he believes to be a game tape. The man in the black cloak picks up the item from the ground, trying to understand why it is there. Then a strange energy hits him. He doesn't know what is happening, and he is puzzled when he realizes there was a connection error. The cable is unplugged. Someone tells him to stop moving. He gets irritated because things were going so well. One of the men in suits asks why he moves so much, saying he should just die already, and Crash never imagined they would go so far over a game. The henchman on the phone speaks with the president, asking if he wants Crash taken alive. The call ends and he says the order is to eliminate Crash and take his head as a prize. The man says he should have played at his own level, and even says he thought he could do anything just because he was good at the game and that nothing scared him anymore after he became famous. With the order to cover Crash's face, the man raises the dagger, taking him out of the real world as well. Someone calls out to the Lord, asking him to wake up, and the young man awakens with frightened eyes. His expression is one of horror and fear, and after much confusion, the young man wonders what just happened, since he thought he had been eliminated after being stabbed. He notices someone beside the bed. The young girl wakes him, calling him Rawl and asking worriedly if he is alright. However, he finds not only the name strange, but also something about her. Noticing an attribute window on Anna, who asks if she should call the doctor since her lord was sweating coldly. Rawl feels like he is seeing something he shouldn't with the notification that the soul has settled and that the current number of users is 1. The young man realizes that something is very strange, and that all this means only one thing, that he is inside the world of connection. The place he is in is very large, showing great wealth. He observes the world outside, noticing how he can feel everything very differently compared to when he connected his Crash. The level of synchronization determines strength in this world. Normal players have 30% synchronization, but Bae Do-yeon had almost 90%. He managed to stay ranked first for 10 years until the great guilds emerged, but now he doesn't have that body. Now the only thing he has is the information that he's in a closed beta, and currently there is only one user using the system. As he used to do before, he invokes his user, which you can see even in the closed beta. The user information is analyzed, also detecting blocked user information and updating, and with that, he will use the powers of his past life to reach the top again. His name now is Raul, youngest son of Ashton, the 5th count of the Ruben Kingdom. Regarding the Ashton County, it was the first of all to fall in the connection. The county belongs to one of the orthodox families of the Ruben Kingdom, with the count and the eldest son dying suddenly and the second son disappearing. A coup occurred when the youngest son inherited, and during this, the barrier of the forbidden areas broke and they could not withstand the monster invasion. Crash then understands that he is the youngest son of this family, his name Raul Ashton. Looking at the horizon, he can only think that this beautiful city will be destroyed in the next 3 years. But he cannot let that happen. No longer having the life of Ba Do-yeon or even of Crash, he concludes that this is the last one. He had to suffer in that other life, and if he loses the chance to live in this world again, it would be too sad. The young man knows there is only one way to prevent the destruction of the kingdom, and for that, he must become stronger. In a month, the traditional coming-of-age ceremony of Ashton County will begin. If he reaches the semifinals, he can enter the academy and will become stronger there. Wielding the sword, the young master intends to protect his life in this world. He then falls to the ground, dropping the weapon that is much larger. The young man does not understand why he is so tired after just a few swings. Through the window, he discovers that his level is 5, a small difference compared to the maid Anna. With this weak body, he needs to start training immediately for the tournament. A month passes, and thus arrives the long-awaited day of the competition. And the young man is impressed by how many people showed up to participate as well, and he understands that he will have to face them. Raul imagines all the pain he felt during this last time just to pass the qualifiers. The last time he checked his level, it was 13 and his stamina is ready. And luckily, he still has that plan for the fights. His thought is to reach the semifinals, but he is interrupted when something taps his back. He turns around to look and understand what happened. The person who gave him that soft tap apologizes, saying your hand slipped. With an ironic smile, the man asks if the precious noble is also there for the tournament, and Raul remembers his name is Diane and behind them are his cousins. The man says he thought he would be in his room crying, and the young man knows he is the second son of his uncle, the Viscount, and therefore his cousin. Diane used to bully Raul during fencing practice in the past. Because of the family motto, the instructor and the count ignored it, as they must train as if it were real and equally, without being responsible for injuries during training. In the end, his cousin is just a jerk who bullies those weaker than him, and the man tells him to run away because it won't just be a broken bone this time. He declares that he will break every part of the young count's small body. Diane asks to let his cousin pass, claiming that soon the boy will be crying. Raul observes the man closely, and believes he is the most likely candidate to win the tournament. But confident, the count wishes for him to laugh while he still can, because he intends to destroy him in the final. The sun is almost setting. The butler is with the daily tournament report which his lord asks him to deliver. He asks if there is anyone even minimally reasonable. The powerful man picks up the papers to take a look, then asks where Raul is at that moment, and the butler informs that he returned to his room after finishing his meal. He believes that the young man used all of his strength during the qualifiers and went back to rest. Then Count Melvin Ashton, Raul's father, dismisses the man. He is finally left alone in his office. Then the man is free to laugh and say that the young man is truly his son. Raul is one of the candidates who qualified, making it to the group stage. The Count never forced his son to learn to use a sword because he knew he was always the weakest among his brothers. But then Raul started training a month before the tournament. At first, he would always fall after 10 minutes of training, but never gave up. Melvin knew he was being bullied during training because of his weak body, but if he helped Raul, he would never learn to defend himself. Thus, he had to wait until his son could fight for himself. However, this went far beyond the man's expectations. When the tournament ends, he plans to visit him. Then finally, the day of the final match arrives. The people in the stands do not seem happy and ask to be entertained. They ask for the fighter to stop stalling and quickly finish his opponent. The fighter is surprised that the weak-looking boy has not yet fallen. The young master remains resilient. He uses his sword to defend against the blow. His opponent even makes an effort to defeat him. He strikes once again, irritated at the young man for not falling yet. The blow pushes Raul a little farther away. In the stands, people watch with astonishment, impressed that once again the young man took a hit and still managed to endure for quite some time. The people believe that Melvin's third son might succeed, which leaves his opponent even more irritated because he has support. The man charges at him, shouting that he cannot run forever like a rat, and asks if he feels no shame doing such a thing as a member of the Count's family. But while defending himself, Raul says he is not even listening to him, making the man even more furious with the provocation. The young master wields his sword as if ready to attack, and from the stands they shout for Edmund to finish him already since the fight is lasting too long and their salaries were bet on him. This makes the man certain he will end the game, and he declares he will finish him. People are impressed to see a man of sword, and a woman says he must dodge it if he gets hit this time. Edmund declares the young master's end. However, it is he who ends up impressed. For Raul, Ashton is standing with his sword raised and ready to attack without even thinking about dodging. With a clash of blows, everything lights up with an explosion. People are impressed, trying to understand what happened. But little by little, the smoke begins to clear. The battle is over and the winner is Raul. People are amazed, thinking it impossible that the third son had won. Meanwhile, Edmund does not accept the result and asks how he could be the winner. The fighter shouts at the judge and accuses him, saying that if he had been stopped, it would have been different, but the man says that is nonsense. The redhead asks him to look at his neck and says that if the battle hadn't been stopped, it would have been he who would have been finished. During the fight, while Edmund was rushing at the young count, Raul was not just trying to block, but blinded by his hatred to eliminate the boy, the fighter did not realize that Raul was actually aiming for his opponent's neck. Edmund falls to the ground, very frightened. Raul says they need to have a conversation about the man's disrespect towards the county, but only after the end of the tournament, which leaves the man quite haunted. It is already night when the boy returns. He is greeted by the maid who wishes him a good rest. The young master looks back, checking to make sure he is completely alone, and then, with a big smile, celebrates his victory. Raul opens his status window. His sword skill has risen to level 9 and everything is going according to plan. All of this using game resources for more XP and fighting a stronger opponent for a long time was beneficial to him. Clenching his fist tightly, he wants nothing more than for his plan to succeed. The game mode gives an X multiplier by removing revival, a hardcore mode with high risk. At first he complains, but he wouldn't have been able to level up so much if he were in normal mode. Best of all, he has 5 unique traits, being a master in psychokinesis from Ba Do-yeon and Raul's royal lineage. The rest of the abilities he plans to unlock as he levels up, and looking at the window, he thinks of an idea. Clicking on the screen, he plans to use it in the next matches of the tournament. The event is still ongoing, and once again young Raul is declared the winner. His opponent is on the ground while people shout his name. The young count has achieved yet another victory. This surprises everyone, seeing the youngest son reach the grand final, believing it to be all a matter of luck. Some believe the young master must be using some trick, but Raul remains calm, knowing that civilians in the early stages of connection knew nothing about the powers that players had. For him, it is better to keep this a secret, so he should only use psychokinesis when players appear, and he believes that with absolute certainty he will be able to hide it with his acting skills. Ivan knocks on the door and the young man asks him to come in. The man enters, worried that he might have been hurt, but Raul says he is fine, and if anything had happened, there would have been a priest and healer at the arena. Even so, the butler begs him not to let his guard down, and asks him to remember that there is an injury they cannot heal, and the young count promises to be careful. The boy understands that Ivan is truly worried, and he cannot get used to it since he never experienced this in his past life, and he asks if he brought what he requested, and the butler delivers it to him, informing him that he did as asked. Even so, Ivan asks if he is sure about this, and when talking about Diane, the young master asks him not to worry, because Raul is sure that he will win no matter what. The man then says he trusts him and announces he will take his leave. While walking, Ivan thinks about how the boy's confidence is very similar to the count's when he was younger. But his concern is that the final opponent is Diane, and he knows that he brutally injures whoever he faces. Looking at the paper, Raul wonders how much it must cost. In his hands is the county's betting system created for legal bets during tournaments. The bets also go to the participants. For him, it is enough to secure his place in the family. And only one thing is missing. On the battlefield, the young man enters while his cousin Diane is already waiting for him. And all Raul needs to do is destroy him. The young master stands with his sword drawn, and at that moment, the final battle begins. While some shout that he can do it, others say the youngest should prepare to be crushed by his cousin, but he intends to win with his skills. Diane calls him a weakling, and with a smile, he says he doesn't know how he managed to get this far, but will make sure he regrets coming. The young man also says that the people cheering for the count will soon discover how useless he is. He even says it will be a good sight when he starts crawling with his limbs torn off. To provoke, Raul imitates as if he were all injured and missing parts of his body. Then he asks if he's done stretching his tongue, leaving his cousin in disbelief. Diane is trembling with rage. With mana overflowing from his body, he calls Raul selfish, and the people in the stands believe the youngest won't withstand. But unconcerned, the young master thinks his cousin is just acting tough. Diane's potential talent is only B for Raul. He may look impressive now, but he knows that's his limit. It is declared that the battle begins, and the Viscount says he will eliminate his cowardly cousin. He tries the first strike, but is surprised when Raul dodges. The young master then makes his attack, and people are surprised that he was the first to strike. Being well-trained, Diane was able to defend himself from the blow, but this left him even more irritated, telling the boy to stop showing off. Meanwhile, Raul analyzes his opponent's fighting style and realizes that his flexibility is less than he imagined. As for his strength, it doesn't matter much. Diane tries to strike, but does not hit. Raul defends himself and can clearly see his sword movement. A sword skill with no practical experience, generic of a noble. The fighter then falls to the ground eating dust. Raul, who suffered bullying from him, now sees Diane holding his hurt nose, irritated by the trip he took. More mana envelops Diane, who promises to put an end to his cousin. However, what impresses the young Count is that with all that energy, the only thing his opponent knows how to use is a mana sword, and his next move shocks everyone in the audience. With a strike, Raul knocks Diane's sword away. The boy is bored with the fight. Looking at his cousin, he thinks that after all, Diane is nothing, which does not please the man. With all his fury, the Viscount charges at his young cousin, only to be tricked again, and Raul says he has anger issues for falling for the same trick. He kicks his cousin on the ground as if he were a trash bag, humiliating him even more, saying he is bringing shame to the name of the Austin Viscounty. Possessed by hatred once again, Diane declares that he will eliminate him. But in the end, he just ends up getting beaten by his young cousin. Even he did not expect that, ending up on the ground from the blow. The audience is impressed that Diane lost. Everyone is in disbelief that the man lying on the ground is truly the Viscount. But that is not what Raul is worried about. He tells the judge that the opponent has fallen and asks if the battle will continue. The winner of the Ashton County Coming of Age tournament is Raul Ashton. While some say they always believed the young master would win, others are outraged that someone they thought was weak won. Everyone shouts Raul's name and he is happy for his victory. But his stamina is terrible, causing the young master to collapse to the ground and meaning to call the healer. The window appears for Raul, leaving him a bit confused by what he sees. With the mission completed, he gained 300 coins, a random skill book, and some attribute points. Thus, he can go to the Kingdom's Academy. Avon says he is very proud of the young master to the Count, and says the boy grew so much in just 1 month. But what Melvin analyzed is that his son toyed with Diane, and if he reached this level in just a month, it is because he is a genius. Raul is still on the battlefield and notices something. It is his father, whom he sees up high, observing him. Then the young master waves, thinking the man probably knows he is good enough to go to the academy. His father shows no reaction. Just like the tournament, the day also ends, giving way to night. Melvin, with all his authority, says he cannot allow it, catching Raul by surprise, who asks the reason. He says he thought he could go if he managed to reach at least the semifinals, but the man says that is situational. Melvin says that from what he saw, his son needs to stay by his side for a while longer. With Raul's collapse after the battle, his father only wishes for him to stay longer, and the young man says that learning about the sword is a lifelong journey. Confronting his father, the young master asks if that is not what he always told him. He says he is trying to go to the academy so he can learn more, just like the Count told him, and therefore he cannot be stopped. The man is impressed by his son's words. Then Melvin realizes that his son has truly grown. With not much else to do, he accepts it. However, the man says that if the boy truly wants to go, he will have to get past him, and he declares that he will not hold back even if it is against his own son. The Count then asks what he will do. A month passes, and in the present moment, soldiers are gathered heading in a single direction. The flag of Ashton County is attached to a wagon, and inside it is the young master, who despite being bored is relieved to finally be leaving. He remembers the day his father stopped him. The young man then also picked up his sword and said he would accept his decision. Raul charged at him and father and son faced each other. Melvin, smiling, even asked if that was all the son had. The two faced off without any clear sign of who would win. The young master then said he would show his true sword skill, but he fainted from his father's attack, who claimed he went easy on him, though Raul believes it was his full strength. He also knows that this powerful fifth Count dies soon after the World of Connection begins. And after that, the county is quickly destroyed. So to prevent that, his father needs to stay alive. Raul needs to meet his expectations since he let him go. Thus, he decides he will become stronger to protect his family and cannot lose. Meanwhile, at the county residence, Melvin spies through one of the many windows there. He thinks about his youngest son, thus remembering the previous event, when he asked Raul to give up and questioned how many times he had tried. But the boy said he would never give up. This made him smile, liking his son's persistence. For the Count, this is worthy of the Ashton family. Raul then wielded his sword ready for the attack, and Melvin shouted for him to strike him. However, what impressed him was the trajectory of Raul's sword. It simply changed midway, resulting in a small cut on the Count's cheek. Raul only managed to cause a small wound even using psychokinesis. Smiling, the Count said the time had come. And so he admitted that Raul was no longer a child, but a proud swordsman. The man then let his son go, so that he could witness and know the world. Around the campfire, the men rest. Curious, Raul asks Sir Philip, a high knight of level 92, how far they are from their travel destination. The man says that at this pace they will arrive in 5 days and asks if they should go faster. Needing to train the soldiers, the young master says to continue at this rhythm. Including him and his servants, the Ashton family selected a total of 50 people. Among them are 3 high knights, 6 apprentice knights, 15 trainees, and 20 cavalrymen, all with a potential talent grade of B or higher. The number and skill levels are not bad, and to prevent destruction they need to become stronger. Jake appears, informing that the maintenance of the carriage has been completed, and thus they can depart, and the young master thanks him. The man asks if they really should take so many people to that place for a month, but Philip asks him not to question Raul. And the young Count simply says that he will know once they get there, leaving the other confused. With a strange but confident look, He says he will know the reason for taking them all. The free city of Mira, one of the first cities players go to after finishing the tutorial. The place has many missions and hidden items in addition to limiting mana use to prevent irrational massacres of beginner players. Besides all that, the resources are infinite, so players would go crazy over the place. God's Domain, a place full of monsters for players to gather resources. The place was the reason why Raul took everyone to this city, to the resource accumulation zone for rapid level up. For him, it is a perfect plan, and looking at the window, he realizes he has new missions as soon as he enters Mira. Raul thought he wouldn't be able to use any resources until the official launch, so for him it is great if he can unlock more resources by meeting conditions. Jake interrupts him to inform that he can meet with the mayor and asks what he would like to do. And of course the boy accepted to meet. Mayor Ronaldo of the Free City asks who is waiting. It is said that it is the youngest son of Ashton County who came to visit with 50 of his people, and the man understands that it is the weak third son. Ronaldo asks why he is there and in any case tells them to let him in since his family makes good money from monster materials and he intends to get his hands on it. The office door opens, and the young master enters, greeting the mayor. Very cheerfully, the man welcomes him to the Free City of Mira. The mayor asks him to sit, and Raul notices that the old man's fake smile is too obvious. The man goes straight to the point, asking why the youngest is there, and Raul replies that he heard the place is excellent for training. Ronaldo says he came to the right place, and that Mira is the safest place to train, and Raul says it can't be just anywhere. That the young master asks for permission to enter the cursed forest, leaving the man shocked. The mayor justifies that the place is too dangerous for weaklings, and before he could call the boy that, he corrects himself, saying it is bad for young people. But that is exactly what Raul expected, and with a sigh he says he has no choice. Then he says he will have to throw the 500,000 gold coins he was going to give him as a gift into the river. And with that amount of money, the mayor immediately says he was just joking, easily accepting the offer. He says that the cursed forest will be easy for him and his knights and thus grants permission for entry. Smiling, Raul says he knew a mayor as generous as him would allow it. Now the only thing left to do is to accumulate resources and collect all the rewards, and so he plans to reach the top of the connection soon. It is night in the Free City of Mira, a place built for connection players to live, but there are no players yet since the game is in closed beta. Only Raul Ashton has access, and because of that, this city is going through a crisis. There are many inns, shops, large guild buildings, and other facilities that are too small for the number of people living there. The price of land has dropped because of all this, and to be honest, Raul's true purpose for coming there is the real estate market. If he buys cheap land in Mira, sooner or later it will be used to build luxury houses for nobles, guild houses for players, apartments for common people to live in, and in the future, that land will be worth more than 100 times what it is worth now. From what he remembers, as soon as the players arrive and the war begins, Mira, the city blessed by the gods, becomes a perfect refuge. In the past, it was possible to make money just by renting the land. But for him, even that is not enough considering the war and risks, he has to prepare even more. For him, the great guilds are disgusting, and as Crash, he couldn't do anything against their financial power, but this time he intends it to be different. A little nervous, Jake asks if he should just sign. The man calls for Sir Raul, who seems very irritated. Stressed, the boy asks him to sign already after all. Everyone else did, only he is left, and Jake says his mother advised him to be careful about what he signs. The papers are organized and aligned. The woman says that including the young count, there are a total of 51. Thus, the creation and registration of the Pioneers Guild are completed. Then Raul creates the first guild in a world without players, the first and most advanced. They will receive assistance from the system as guild members, and Raul is excited to see the confused look on their faces. At the Mira Battle Association branch office, the young master is next. The woman who welcomes him asks how she can help, and he says he is there to see some skill books and asks about the highest rank. Skill books have different abilities written in them. By reading carefully, one can learn, and the ranks go from F to S. She says the branch has skill books up to rank C, but they can only be bought by VIP clients. Raul asks what the conditions are to become one, and the woman says it can be through missions or buying other books, but it would require spending a lot. Interested in becoming a VIP, he asks how much, and she responds that the spending requirement is 10,000 gold coins. Leaving the woman surprised, the young master says the amount isn't much and depositing the money, asks to see the rank D books first. Very cheerfully, the attendant asks which ability he would like, suggesting sword, bow, magic, or shield. With a smile on his face, remembering he is the youngest son of the Count. Raul Ashton then asks for all of them. Jake laments the weight he is carrying. He asks the young master if they really need all those books, and with a smile, the boy replies that they will help them level up. Even finding the books well written, Jake says they are only used to train beginners, and Jake agrees, saying he could have bought powerful armor instead. Confident, Raul says that the next day they will understand better and asks them not to worry and to be patient. Finally, the young master is out of the dangers of the street, and looking closely, he imagines that maybe he exaggerated. He remembers there is a limit to the number of abilities a player can use, so normally they can't have many skills. Raul calls up the mission window. When he woke up in this body, he had 2 unknown items in his inventory and wishes to know what they are. He can't even click or use them. But then the day before, when he received a mission, he was finally able to use the items. The boy calls up the inventory window. Raul discovered that one of them is a sealed skill encyclopedia, and he wonders if the mission reward was the activation of this book. He understands that he needs to open the encyclopedia and hold the skill book, noticing the option to register. An aura is emitted by the book, which begins to flip its pages. The purple light then connects with the other book. Something is recorded on the page, and the book falls to the ground. Raul shouts, impressed that it worked, noticing that the mana mark on the book disappeared. However, it will take a long time to do this with all of them, and he wonders if there is a way to register all at once. Suddenly, the books begin to levitate, and again the purple mana connects to all the books. Then they all fall to the ground. Raul is impressed that the encyclopedia understood what he said. Thus, he believes it worked. The mission is completed and the rare encyclopedia was activated and the collector and copier trait was unlocked. Raul is amazed that he can steal abilities from others with the copier even at level 3. Meanwhile, the encyclopedia is a mythical item that has records of ancient abilities, and Raul is happy because he is sure it is what he received before his death. Some parts of his past life like psychokinesis and the items came with him, but his skills were erased, and this is also a replica. What remains are the 3 EX grade traits and an item in the inventory, and he is curious to know the type of power he has. It is already very early and a surprised scream can be heard. The young knights ask about the status window and what is the thing called the guild chat. Scared, they call for the priest. Raul is greeted by Bernard. The young master's look is that of someone tired. He couldn't sleep because he stayed up reading the entire skill encyclopedia. The young man asks the butler if he explained everything to the others. Bernard confirms that he explained everything as he was taught. Excited, the young master asks if he also tried out the skill book. The redhead is a subordinate of the Ashton family and Ivan's stepson, who has worked since young and was personally taught by his stepfather. He has a very good memory and understands things quickly. But there's another reason Raul chose Bernard. He has the power to control the wind and impressed. The young master says he knew he would manage. Bernard is level 21, a subordinate class, beginner wind walker, with talents such as wind power. His attributes are not very good, but he has great talent to be a subordinate or a telepath, and thus he finalizes his preparations. Raul asks him to get ready and Bernard doubts what he is talking about. Then the young master declares they will depart as soon as the knights get used to God's domain, the Cursed Forest. Finally, in the Cursed Forest of God's domain, one of the monsters tries to wound the young master. The creature strikes first, but it does not hit Raul, who smiling says he is too slow. Then it is his turn for a counterattack, punching the green monster. His punch is so powerful that it makes the enemy explode. Only the lower part remains. Confident, the young master asks for the others to come. More ogres gather for the attack, and they say they must defeat the strong human. A big red monster seems to be the leader, and he asks everyone to charge. The creatures surround the boy, but the young master is prepared, and with a confident smile, he tells them to come. The Cursed Forest, God's domain, is not just a place to gather resources, it also encompasses the entire city of Mira. If players get hurt, they are healed. If they are eliminated, they revive in this blessed city, which is why it is the best refuge. And in the forest, the blessing is only for the monsters, so the number of these creatures remains the same even after they are eliminated. Humans cannot be revived in the Cursed Forest and must leave it with the items they received from the monsters they hunted. If they attack them outside, the items turn to ashes and disappear, which means you cannot touch the property of the gods. But this only applies to civilians. Players, however, can use the items they obtain from the monsters outside the forest. Excited by the fight, Jake says it is the assistant system. Philip looks at the knight beside him and wonders why he is saying that since the young master is fighting alone. Raul holds his ground in the fight, facing everyone. The red leader is impressed by the human's power. The fallen weapons begin to levitate, and the young master smiles happily with his psychokinesis. The great monster widens its eyes. All the weapons are aimed at it, then the weapons attack, hitting it. The young master smiles at the success of his battle, and Jake, who is watching, even imitates the hand movement. The knight says the ability is a great help, but Philip tells him to shut up and keep skinning the ogres. But he complains that he didn't come from far away just to do that, although he thinks he made great progress in this training. Meanwhile, Raul Ashton collects the valuable red fluid from the creatures. He thanks them, saying it was only possible because of everyone's help, and explains that they can get stronger by studying skill books. Philip understands that he is right in what he says. He picks up one of his weapons. An ogre is approaching and he throws it at him. The creature is hit and split in two. Raul asks if he liked it, and says that's why he bought skill books instead of powerful armor. The knight is impressed, finding everything amazing. He thinks about having learned his skills so quickly and wonders how Raul discovered this strange ability. Suddenly, the chat screen appears, and his eyes widen at what he sees. He turns to the young master and warns him about the chat. Raul looks irritated and says he saw it and that they must return to Mira immediately, far away from the Cursed Forest. A man is lying injured on the ground. Another holds a sword and says he should have done this earlier, smiling as he drives the blade, and he says it was hard to hold back after seeing him walking around with the Ashen boys. He tells his brother that he should have listened to what he said, and that they could have done all this earlier. Injured, the other brother asks why he is doing this, and in response, the other brother says their great uncle told them to be attentive, and that is why they are all there, because they cause a scene. Raymond is the firstborn of Viscount Randall. The second son is named Jerry, and Cale is the third son. Even close to the end, the knight says they will regret this. Raymond grips the hilt of the sword and mercilessly yanks it out, making the man scream in pain. The firstborn sarcastically says to tell the young master to hurry because they also have things to settle with them. In the end, Raymond finds it strange that they keep reviving. The young knight rides in pain. With a psychotic laugh, Jerry says they will do the same to Rawl, and Cale says he thought nobles couldn't draw swords in the Free City. But the eldest son sees no problem with it and says they can just say they didn't do it, and says that thinking about it, it's actually a good thing being able to destroy the Ashen family. Smiling, Raymond says maybe the great uncle might even praise them. His laughter doesn't last long as the upper part of his body explodes. Cale and Jerry scream for him. Then the brothers look back terrified. The young master has no amused look like he had when fighting the ogres. Rawl asks how they dare commit this offense against the Ashen County and says they will have to pay with more than just their worthless lives. Only the youngest of the Ashtons is there to face them. Jerry asks if he is crazy for having touched one of the Randall family's sons. The younger brother asks what the knights are doing and how they managed to get there. As a threat, the sword is at the knight's neck. And frightened, the man tries to say that they are the main force of the Ashen family. Philip then informs the young master that they have surrounded the Randall knights just as he ordered. Bernard is also there with them, and the tall knight Jake. The young master then says that they did a good job. A blue aura surrounds the injured knights lying on the ground. Then the bodies begin to levitate. It is Rawl who uses his telekinesis and calls for the butler. He asks him to take the wounded knights to the sanctuary. The inventory is summoned by the young master. The sword is retrieved by him, and the youngest says he will clean up this trash by himself. The Randall Viscounty is just like the Ashen County. They are one of the 5 warrior families of the Rumen Kingdom, but the family does not have a long history. The 4 warrior families were reorganized into the 5 warrior families when the current lord of the family, Viscount Hudson, reached the master swordsman level. They found several ways to secure their place by producing great respectable knights, making contributions, and destroying their opponents. And the opponent they rivaled was the Ashen County, which had lost its power since it had not produced a master swordsman for a long time. There were many conflicts between these two families, most initiated by the Randalls, and everyone expected them to win for having many swordsmen. Even the people of the family themselves thought the same thing would happen here. Jerry is impressed by the boy's unusual strength, even more so for having pulled his sword from the air. The two families face each other, each on one side. Taking advantage of the distraction and the fact that young Ashton has his back turned, the knight grabs his sword. But he cannot land a blow because Rawl is faster. He only needs one strike, and the knight screams in pain as he is hit. This scares some of the enemies. Philip says the young master ordered that he would handle it alone, so he asks everyone to lower their swords. One of the enemies believes that lowering their swords will give an advantage to the Randall side. Shouting, Cale asks if he really plans to fight all of them alone, and says that this time it's not a training session, then prepares for a mace strike, throwing it towards the young master. But with just one slash, Rawl cuts him in two. The youngest of the Randall Viscounty screams in pain. Only the middle son remains, calling for his brother. Jerry asks his soldiers not to just stand there watching. Frightened, they look back at the tall figure among them. The blonde knight then realizes he will have to move. He says he did nothing because he didn't want to bully a 15-year-old boy. But Jeremy, leader of the Guardian Knights, knows he cannot remain idle while his comrades are being eliminated. For him, that is not right. Even frightened, the other knights follow their leader. Looking at the rapier, the main weapon of the Randall family, Rawl thinks these knights are elite. All of them point their blades at him. While the leader is at level 65, the others are around level 60, and Rawl's current level is 45, making it normally impossible for him to win. One of the knights asks why they don't stop him, and another says they let him do what he wanted, but they won't care even if he is young. Rawl is emanating mana throughout his body. One of the soldiers is confused about what is happening, but he doesn't have much time to think with the strike he receives. The young master grabs his powerful sword, and his body shines even more with the image of his family's symbol. Then he attacks with the bear strike. The knight is impressed with the boy even asking what he is. But Rawl is not intimidated and answers using his sword, making quick cuts on his opponent. Someone else comes to fight him. It is the leader of the knights making his attack. However, Rawl Ashton quickly notices and uses his sword to defend. The two stand still after the clash. Jeremy asks the knight beside him if he is okay, and the frightened man says yes. The leader is impressed that 2 in elite positions were easily eliminated. He had heard that Rawl was weak, but didn't know he used a sword. He pulls out another sword and says that the young man is different from the rumors, and for that reason, he will have to fight seriously. But Rawl is ready for whatever comes. The enemies face each other from opposite sides. The youngest Ashton notices that he carries a dagger for parrying and a rapier and wonders if he is using the shooting star skill. Jeremy gives a small smile. He says he likes the courage of the young man and asks if he knows that every wound is healed in Mira. And he declares that Ashton won't be able to fight all of them, but Raul says he must be confused. The young master says he bets that he and the knights didn't even train when they arrived in Mira. This leaves Jeremy scared, wanting to know how he found out. Raul says that the soldiers trembling even after their wounds were healed are living proof, and he declares that they are not accustomed to death. Jeremy realizes that the youngest Ashton knows not only about combat, but can see through everything and thus is a threat. He asks a soldier to cover his rear. The leader runs to attack Raul and prepares for his finishing blow. The young master stands still, unafraid of the danger, while the two launch a combined attack, managing to make a small cut on the boy's face. Not only that happened to the young count, several other cuts were made on him. And at that moment, the knight sees an opening. Without warning, he prepares to strike him. It's too late when Jeremy shouts for him not to do it, because Raul had already launched his counterattack. And with his sword, he cuts him down like the others. Seeing that situation, Jeremy says he was an idiot. He realizes he has no more time to lose, activating the Randall family's sword vision ability and his shooting star weapon skill. Raul becomes alert to that. Grabbing his sword, he asks the man to bring it on. The two clash fiercely, and as Raul expected, his opponent has a powerful skill known for its strength in one-on-one combat, making it difficult even with his psychokinesis. But you must keep up in order to win. Jeremy is also impressed by Ashton's endurance. He is definitely dominating this fight. After all, he has put a lot of pressure on his opponent. But there is one thing he doesn't understand: why the boy had that arrogant look. But the only thing Raul Ashton says is 100%, which leaves Jeremy very confused. With a strike, his weapons are torn away. Impressed, he watches them being thrown far away. The opponent's ability has been examined 100%, and the copy is ready for use. This ability copies exact movements using the recording to store them in the encyclopedia. Jeremy watches his swords in the air, amazed. Controlled, they come toward them. In one hand, Raul holds a sword, and in the other, he holds the rapier of the Randall Knight's leader. Thus, he activates the shooting star ability. Then small fireballs head toward the enemy, making Jeremy both scared and impressed at how the boy managed to replicate his exact move. He realizes that it is definitely the shooting star. Receiving his own attack, the man can only think of one thing. Jeremy screams, asking who betrayed the family and taught the boy their skill. Ready for the attack and smiling, Raul says that he himself taught it. The leader cannot understand what he said. But in any case, the young master strikes him down, and the status is at 100% synchronization. He now has the shooting star ability recorded for use and adjusted to intermediate one. It's finally over, but Raul knows that using the rank as ability copy is difficult because it is very overpowered. He can only copy one ability at a time and cannot lose sight of his opponent, or else the examination will restart. That's why he didn't even blink while receiving attacks. Besides that, it's only possible to copy in a one-on-one fight. In the window, he looks at his abilities, which are two: basic meditation, the mental skill of the Ashtons, and the sword cleave skill, Bear's Strike. Thanks to the skill encyclopedia, he can use 3 or more skills in the selection slots that allow free usage of them. Something catches Raul's attention. It is Jerry asking what he is and how he used the Randall family's sword skill. Thus, he realizes the man is still there and asks Philip to eliminate them every time they revive for at least an hour. The knight agrees and asks if everyone heard the order, and they all agree with what was said. The brave Jerry now trembles in fear, begging for forgiveness. But for Raul Ashton, blood must be paid with blood. This is not the Earth, nor a game. This is the reality that has been presented to him, so Raul calls for his knights. Remembering his past life, he intends to do everything not to lose again. Even if it means swimming in a pool of ketchup, he will not lose. From the window, the mayor watches, trying to understand what is happening. According to the plan, when the Randalls attacked Raul, he would earn his share of the money after mobilizing the guards to help. But Ashton alone defeated 15 knights. The boy looks directly at him with his frightening eyes. Randall falls to the ground in despair and wonders how the boy discovered he was there. He thought he was just a spoiled rich kid who had good looks and was weak. This makes the mayor wonder if by chance he is a secret master swordsman from the county. If that's the case, he worries that the boy may have uncovered all his plans as well. The only solution he finds is to try to be friendly with Ashton County in the future. The sudden mission with rescue and punishment completed generated a reward of 30,000 X gold coins and a B-grade skill book ticket. Although he thinks he might have gone a little overboard, the rewards are very good for him. He also managed to get 5,000 gold coins, a spatial expansion pouch that can carry a good amount. Another gain was the unique grade rapier and a set of armor from the Cursed Randalls. He also thinks it was very good to have gotten the B-grade skill book ticket. Stopping to think, he feels that all he got from the tournament was bad. The boy prays, saying he doesn't need anything amazing, but at least something intermediate this time. While tearing the ticket, he only hopes it won't be terrible. The light shines on him as he draws his prize. From Raul Ashton's eyes, it's clear how impressed he is. He won the B-grade skill book, Rivera's Spear Art. Spear Art is a necessary skill for his next destination, the capital, and he smiles thinking that luck is following him. Then he only has one important thing left to do in Mira at that moment. After all, he invested a month for it. Thus, he will ensure he is successful. A week later passes. The young Miss Ashton's son is landing another strike with a rapier, and the ogre screams as it falls to the ground. The young man seems quite tired, but at least he has risen to level 51 and can now decide on a possible promotion. He becomes a sword specialist and an intermediate psychokinesis user. His knights support him happily for becoming a sword specialist at only 15 years old. The young master raises his hand using his ability, thus making several stones rise from the ground and levitate, giving the order for them to go. The stones follow the indicated direction and hit their target. Raul also draws his powerful sword, while the stones continue hitting the ground. With the bear strike, he makes his attack, sending more stones flying in all directions. He asks if it was supposed to be like that, and his knights are impressed with his abilities and that he managed it without their help. Thus, Jake suggests they should rest a little. But Philip grabs his ear and tells him to think about how much he had to sleep for the young master to surpass him. The blonde says it's a joke and that Raul worked hard, and that's why he thinks they should take it a bit easier. However, the young count says that even if it's a joke, he doesn't plan to rest yet, and the knights ask what they should do. Raul asks them to keep it a secret among themselves because he will later tell the family what happened, and they agree. The boy hunted enough monsters and leveled up considerably, while the two fools behind him are in a small argument. Meanwhile, he set all the traps, and all that remains is for the prey to fall into them, so for now, they will return. Now the Empire's dogs must move quickly. Even at night, the city is quite busy. The alchemist Nakia stretches, marking the end of the workday. She comments that potions are very popular lately, and all thanks to Ashton County, which made all of this possible. To produce potions, bioproducts from monsters are needed, and since they appear rarely, it was not easy to obtain them all this time. But thanks to the people from the county who began bringing bioproducts she can produce every day. Not only that, but people from there stop by the village every morning to shop and ask if anything has happened or if they need anything. The girl starts walking to leave her little shop. She thinks about Raul, and although she finds him a little strange, she feels grateful to him. Nakia also finds him handsome, but she soon regrets thinking about that. She tries to compose herself. After all, the boy is 8 years younger than her, not to mention that he's a noble. The girl arrives at her destination, and upon opening the door, she calls for Nikki. She enters announcing that she is back, but Nikki doesn't respond, and she calls once more. Nakia spots something that makes all her life fluid freeze. There is a note on the bed with a knife stabbed into it. His sister was taken as a hostage, and if she wishes to save her, she must not tell anyone and wait for further instructions. The girl is horrified that Nikki is in danger. The girl runs around, unable to believe this is happening. She is in despair that this is happening to her sister, and that her life will be in danger if she goes outside the city. Nakia remembers hearing many reports of kidnappings and that the city is investigating. Thus, the rumor is true. In despair, she doesn't know where to go. At the city hall, they could be watching her, and the guards don't care about a poor child. Then in her mind comes Raul Ashton saying that if she ever had a problem, she could find him. Crying, she understands that this is the only way. She runs because she needs to go see him. In the guild chat, Pierce informs the young master that Nakia is heading toward him. He asks everyone to get into formation and stay in their safe zones, reporting any changes. After the speech, Raul accesses the connection community. He clicks on the cafe link, which is a type of information board only for members that he managed in his past life since he was a star player and received useful information from fans. Luckily, the cafe still exists, and he can use it instead of uncertain memories to plan better. He checks all the missions in Mira that he could take and now just needs to hope everything goes as planned. A knight announces Nakia's arrival. And with that, the young master wonders if he can change the future. Either way, he asks them to treat the girl with respect. Mad Alchemist is one of Nakia's titles that cause fear in everyone, as she didn't hesitate to perform experiments on humans for revenge against the Empire. But for now, she is just a desperate girl asking for help. Raul asks her to calm down, claiming that everything will be fine. In a gentle way, he asks her to explain what happened so that he can help her. Nakia tells him about Nikki's kidnapping, saying she should have been home 2 hours ago, as the neighbor lady next door was taking care of her. To reassure her, the boy says not to worry because he will definitely rescue her sister, saying he might even know where she is. He says he will inform her as soon as he finds Nikki, and asks her to stay there because Bernard will assist her. The butler tells the alchemist that she made an excellent choice as the young master keeps his promises. It's Philip who informs that Pierce is tracking the kidnappers. He also says he received operational permission from Mayor Reynaldo to go after the rogues who have been kidnapping people and disrupting trade. Raul asks if he provided the list of the rats, and the knight confirms, saying that the mayor will reward them later. The young master used data from his informants. Having spent many resources, he ensured there were no gaps in the plan. They then prepare for the mission. At least 2 figures are hiding behind the bushes. The 2 men exchange signals about the next move. They enter the dark forest, with careful steps to avoid being discovered. The leader is Pierce from Ashton County, from the Golden Bear Knights and Guardian Knight of Rawl. He finally finds what he was searching for. Judging by the tracks on the ground, he believes this is it and thus begins the operation. The man then makes a great leap. Pierce tries to use the new skill he learned, then activates detection, making his eyes turn a scarlet shade. The target in front of him also takes on the same color. Around a magic circle, the archers are alert. The ghost magic circles and barriers make him realize that the young master was right, so his duty is to report this. Thus, he remembers something that happened 6 months ago. The youngest son was known for his weakness and lack of talent compared to his brothers. Many servants and knights didn't want to travel with him, and even when looking for volunteers, no one seemed interested for a long time. However, when Rawl visited the knights' training camp and began personally talking with the soldiers, he spoke with Pierce too and said he could help him surpass his limits. Rawl personally wielded the leader's sword and began pointing out the problems. At that moment, Pierce thought he really wanted to surpass his limits but didn't have confidence that the boy could teach him anything. Trying what he said, the leader was surprised at how all of his movements seemed much more fluid. The boy also gave tips about his power lying in agility and that he should polish his archery skills since he had heard he was a talented archer. Only a few people know about Pierce using this type of weapon, and yet Rawl noticed, and so he thought maybe it would help and followed what the boy said. It was the best decision he made, and the leader thinks that everyone who refused the offer is probably regretting it. Pierce reached the stage of high specialist because of the book and was thus able to practice his other skills. The man thinks that maybe today will be the glorious day when the boy shows his true strength. The leader notices something and quickly jumps down from the tree branch. On the ground, he bows. It is Rawl Ashton along with his 2 companion knights. The boy immediately notices something in that forest. In the status, it says that a 3-star or higher magic circle is interfering with vision, and it is necessary to destroy or enter it to receive more information. What he thinks is that the hideouts seem the same despite being in different cities, and that Crayon Empire spies were hiding in Mira. Normally, players in the connection receive missions from the starting cities and rewards for eliminating monsters or rogues. However, there are different kinds of rogues, such as slave traders who kidnap people and mercenaries trying to strike it rich. But the most dangerous among them are the spies of the Crayon Empire, the Imperial dogs who hunt players and blackmail them to prevent alliances. They are crucial at the end of the game too, so Rawl cannot leave them alone. With the young master's order, Pierce fires arrows. They head toward what is blocking their vision, and thus get both targets at once. Rawl realizes there are no other entrances nearby, so he thinks about removing the magic circle with the scroll he brought from the shop. Suddenly, he manages to see the mana flow and wonders if he can do something. Fiddling with his luxurious outfit, he pulls out his sword. Then he inserts his mana into the weapon. The boy then positions himself for a strike against the barrier, and the circle cracks, being a good attempt. Then once again, he repeats the strikes, finally destroying the magic circle. Thus, he imagines that instead of buying scrolls, he can save money. Pierce then orders Jackson Nil to lure them out as planned and says he will give the signal when it's time to enter. The leader then joins the trio. Rawl is satisfied to have elite knights, now he is ready to hunt down all the bastards. The order is that they don't need prisoners, so all of them must be hunted. The young master also reminds them not to forget to use that weapon to deliver the final blow. Jake doesn't understand the need to use something that looks like a twig, but Rawl orders Pierce to take care of the rear and rescue the hostages, especially Nikki. The boy calls for Philip, who understands with just a look. With that, Rawl Ashton declares that they should enter. Only a blue veil covers the entrance. Carefully, they enter the path. At least lights illuminate the place, indicating it is heavily used. Soon Rawl realizes where the hideout is. He gives the signal to his men. Pierce successfully infiltrated the opponent's base, and so they will start the hunt. The young master sneaks a look around the place. He analyzes that the cave ceiling is high and that there are wooden fences scattered everywhere. The rogues' levels are between 30 and 31, not much different from common thieves. After finishing checking the base, he gives the order. First, he signals to the knight Jake. Then he moves on to Philip, who is also aware of what to do. Now each must fulfill their part for the mission to succeed. With the final signal, the 3 begin to run, being very stealthy in their tactics, so much that the only thing noticeable is the dust. The rogues don't even understand what is happening, but it's already too late because Rawl is ready to attack, striking the bandits all at once. Then the boy lands majestically. From his back, he draws his bow and positions the arrow to fire. Meanwhile, each knight is doing their part. Philip and Jake handle the remaining opponents. Finally, the rogues notice them as intruders and shout for the fences to be defended. More rogues appear for combat. However, Rawl notices that the number of enemies is decreasing. They started blocking his arrows. The rogue archers also join in and discover where Rawl is. The young master quickly realizes he has become their target and immediately activates his psychokinesis, causing the arrows to levitate before they can even touch him. The archers are astonished and call for more reinforcements. More enemies join to attack him, and they are warned that arrows don't work, and the order is to jump on him and attack. Because of that, Rawl changes his strategy, taking another weapon from his delicate pocket. His eyes shine, and in his hands he holds several blades. The order from the rogues is to eliminate him. One charges at the boy, But it is Raul who attacks first, leaving everyone confused and not understanding what just happened. The arrows continue to float through telekinesis, and now they are surrounding the boy. They are now aimed at the enemies while Raul himself floats too, leaving his enemies dying of fear, believing it to be magic. Raul Ashen is aiming at all of them, then a rain of arrows heads toward them. Even if some try to escape, they can't avoid the attacks. Meanwhile, Raul lands on a pillar as chaos unfolds around him. However, for him, this was nothing and his power is still not strong enough. He has to put more force to pierce through armor. He leaps away from there, leaving his enemies utterly terrified just knowing he is coming. And another one is eliminated without mercy. With the end of another enemy, the young count looks for the remaining ones. Raul looks around the battlefield. His knights are also succeeding to the point where the rogues are begging everyone to flee, believing they are facing monsters. The enemies even seem about to cry out of fear, asking for help. And Jake looks at them very menacingly. But for Raul, the knight is just rebelling to show he doesn't even need to use the rapier and had been warned not to leave traces of fencing. Anyway, he thinks it's not something to be too worried about. They are almost done dealing with the weaker ones. And in the end, the mission finishes. Pierce apologizes for the failure and says he searched all the prison but could not find little Nikki. He says he explained things to the hostages, distributed clothing and food, and asked them to wait at a safe spot until the battle ended. Curious, Jake asks if he thinks there will be other friends since these seem like mere common thieves, and Raul asks if they don't find it a bit strange. He explains that the first point is that Nikki is not there, and secondly, there were many, but none stood out, and despite the magic circle, there were no mages, concluding that the important people and the real hostages are somewhere else. Jake agrees but says that if they don't find the other place, everything they did there is useless and even asks Pierce's opinion, who says he found nothing. But Raul praises him, saying that he's only been in the guild for less than a month and is doing very well, and soon nothing will escape his eyes. With his team's confidence, the young master asks them to follow him because he thinks he knows where they are. They walk toward a cabin. The young master's order is to investigate it and report any suspicious findings. The knights found nothing suspicious, and Raul asks if it's the fourth cabin they searched. Raul tells them to prepare because things were about to get tense. He kicks the furniture around, and with a rapier, he strikes the ground. The wooden floor breaks. Using telekinesis, Raul opens the iron doors, revealing a secret staircase leading to a basement. He notices something coming. A scaly hand with very sharp claws emerges from the darkness. Startled, Jake asks what the hell that thing is. The paw lands on the ground, making everything tremble with the impact. A very strange monster reveals itself with a huge mouth full of sharp teeth. Soon Philip shouts for them not to break formation, as it would be harder if they spread out. The giant red monster launches its attack, and Raul immediately defends himself. The boy's eyes are sharp on his enemy. He makes an attack, and at that same moment, another monster emerges. Philip explains that they are Imperial Demon Cavalry and that their vital points are different, advising that they should aim for their heads. Even while fighting, Raul thinks he should have studied the monster's characteristics beforehand. He attacks the first creature, but as expected, he has not defeated it yet, and the young master remembers having had problems with these guys in his past life. As Ba, he attacked the Imperial hideouts in the starting city in his 6th month of playing because of a mayor's request when players were about to graduate. Dozens of strong players who had just passed their second-class advancement formed a punitive force that overwhelmed the fortress. Where the cavalries appeared, most players were immediately wiped out, and the top ones barely managed to escape, forcing everyone to stay away for 6 months. The monsters that appeared at that time were complete, and their average levels were close to 50. Now the Imperial Demon Cavalry is incomplete and their levels are lower, but their soldiers are specialists above level 80. And there is something even more important. Raul can see the vital points of the monsters that are placed randomly. The monster charges at him, and the young master attacks it and leaps away again. All he has to do is hit those vital points. With his skills and the strength of his men, the monsters are defeated. Pierce is suspicious about the reason for the creatures being there, as if they were in the kingdom's garden and even wanting to retreat. Raul says they must go in. The leader suggests calling for reinforcements, but the young master doesn't want to waste time and risk the hostages or let the rogues contact the outside world. Philip asks the boy to stay behind and says they will deal with the enemies while Raul and Pierce search for the hostages. The boy understands that it's not the time to be greedy and agrees, since he will still get part of the experience anyway. And of course, he is satisfied to have such reliable subordinates. The two knights go down the stairs. Jake goes ahead saying they should eliminate the enemies as if they were trash. The basement is a sort of laboratory with strange experiments, with creatures of all kinds scattered everywhere, and some inside twos. Pierce thinks they are brave to do this in another country, and Raul confirms the suspicion that the monsters are experiments made from the kidnapped people. The young man had seen several scenes like this in his past life, yet it still terrified him and even made him think about joining them for the sake of sovereignty. But their emperor is an insane guy. Becoming his subordinate is the same as jumping into a fire with a bomb in hand. There are many nonsensical rumors about the emperor, but Raul is certain that he does not see humans for what they are. Humans without royal blood are divided into classes, and when they become useless, they are used in laboratories or become food for monsters. And even high-class citizens, if they do something that bothers the emperor, they are executed too, like the general who complained about his tyranny. While he was talking to the man, the tattoo on his shoulder glowed red and spread, and then he exploded and died. Raul remembers it clearly as if he were there. The boy has no plans to survive under someone like that and can't allow experiments on innocent civilians either. They go deeper into the basement, spotting a mage activating circles to secure the escape route. Pierce says there are 4 knights, 3 mages, and 10 cavalry there, with him handling the mages and Philip taking the knights. Jake is left with the Imperial Demonic Cavalry and asks Raul to provide cover. But the blonde knight didn't like this division very much. An arrow is fired, hitting the first enemy. They quickly shout that there are intruders. Raul then asks his team to attack. The young master also fires arrows. He knows that the mages are from the 5th circle and therefore wants to eliminate them first. He also realizes that against this type of barrier, normal arrows won't work, and the solution is to infuse a bit of psychokinesis, and also to create a path with the skill for the arrow's trajectory. Raul fires several arrows charged with mana, hitting the powerful mages there, thus preventing them from escaping through the teleport portal. The enemies despair as the escape route is blocked, and the order is to break the seal and eliminate everyone, and they all shout that it's for the emperor. The knights charge, ready for battle. As the enemies come toward him, Raul keeps a close eye on their every move, but no attack reaches him. His knight steps in front with his shield. Seeing his effort, Raul wonders how Philip alone isn't enough since he's a specialist knight above level 90. With his ability, he visualizes the status window of the hunting dog, which is level 71 and has attributes boosted by the effect of the red tattoo. Meanwhile, Jake struggles against the monsters and believes they are all drugged. Through the guild chat, he communicates, asking if he can use his sword, thinking the little sticks aren't enough. Raul says that the others are doing fine and that the plan was made trusting in their abilities, but apparently there's no other choice. However, Jake responds that he just thought it was difficult for Pierce, throwing all the blame on the archer. But that was enough to make him even more vigorous for the fight. Raul smiles in satisfaction and thinks about doing something too. He soon grabs his rapier to help in the battle. The boy slashes through everyone in his path, leaving Jake suspicious, wondering how he can so easily discover the monster's weak points. The leader known as the Red Dog is irritated because he didn't expect to be overwhelmed. He asks what they are, and seeing them using rapiers, the man believes they are from the Randall Viscounty. However, he notices that somehow their fencing seems strange, and trusting his instincts, he dismisses the idea. In the heat of battle, Jake yells, asking why someone who's about to be eliminated needs to know that, and calls them all the Empire's mutts. His words make the man furious for insulting the Imperial hunting dogs. He looks at the group, noticing someone standing out, and the dog is surprised to see that he is the leader. With an evil smile, he believes he has found his key to survival. The leader shouts for them to give their lives for the Emperor's honor, and suddenly everyone starts transforming into those monsters. This makes Raul realize that this is the Dark Sacrifice. The monsters attack them again, and even Jake notices the difference in strength. It's an ability that sacrifices the user by burning their life energy and mana to gain incredible strength for a short period of time. Raul believes they are planning something, judging by the fact they are using this ability. The dog leader is coming toward them, with an evil smile, using an E-rank power armor that lasts for 2 hours and consumes mana stones. In the chat, they communicate that Raul is the target. Philip tries to strike the enemy, but the attack was cancelled by the force shield, and the opponent passes through him unharmed. Finally, he reaches the young master, and delivers a punch so strong that it cracks the entire ground. But he notices something is strange and asks what's going on this time. Raul remains in place, and thus the dog realizes the boy is also a power armor user, and he is even more surprised by the moving parts, and judging by its appearance, he believes it's F-class. His instinct tells him it will be dangerous once the mobility ends, but he wants to eliminate the boy and throws another punch. However, his punch stops midair. Even Raul didn't understand, as he was going to dodge the attack using the C-rank skill Flash. But a message appeared, and he couldn't move. The window says he encountered a hostile power armor, and that the Regnator, which was dormant, has awakened. Judging the user Raul's qualifications, he has a unique, unidentified characteristic among those he uses. In the middle of the battle, he gets a warning that he doesn't have enough mana for a full activation and starts searching for another energy source. The format is successfully fixed using psychokinesis, and the Regnator is partially activated, revealing the true power of the power armor. A barrier that blocks all physical attacks weaker than a mana blade, a defense skill that cancels third circle magic, a mysterious core that increases the user's mana and physical abilities. Even at a high level, it's impossible to beat someone with that shield. The power level of the armor is incredible, but they are only usable by NPCs. Therefore, if you are not a citizen of the connection, you cannot use it. For players, it becomes their dream equipment that they can never have. But for NPCs, it was the only way to face the overwhelming power of players. And now Raul Ashton is using one of these. The Imperial Dog is desperate, wanting to know why his attacks aren't working. He throws another blow that sends Raul flying. The boy still maintains his shield without having suffered any physical attack. This makes his enemy even more irritated. Raul does not intend to stay only on defense and uses telekinesis to grab weapons. He is ready to use his special falling star. The Imperial dog widens his eyes just by sensing how powerful that is. With Raul's attack, he realizes he broke the barrier and wonders if this is the end. The damage caused by the young master was too much for him. However, the man doesn't intend to be eliminated alone. While undergoing transformation, just like the others, he screams honor to the Empire. His body starts to modify under some influence of the Man of Stone. Raul realizes that his body is merging with the power armor. Suddenly, he gets an alert that the Regnator detected a forbidden power piece. The window informs about the release of the seal due to a vow, and then a golden light envelops Raul. The specter is so strong that it makes him levitate. Ashton is also undergoing transformation. The window warns that the Regnator will temporarily reveal its true form. Little by little, this new form is revealed with golden and silver details. In the end, Raul Ashton is clad in powerful armor. Sparks of golden light come out from his equipment, and the young master goes to face the watchdog. The man has also finished his transformation and rushes forward to launch his attack. Leaping, he tries to strike Raul, but the boy does not move and calls him despicable, which makes the man, who now looks like a monster, even more irritated. While one attacks, the other defends. Even their companions on both sides stop to witness the fight. The impact of the battle is so powerful that it causes an explosion, and the monsters are thrown far away while the knights try to shield themselves. While the dog threw a punch, Raul used his forearm to block it. The boy has a new strategy. He makes his enemy float and extends his arm, controlling him with telekinesis. Raul's power seems to be interacting with the Mana Stone in the Imperial dog's chest. His command is for the man to be expelled from there. It's as if he's being blown up from the inside out while screaming. His body falls to the ground as the young master's armor begins to break apart in the process. It was pure luck since Raul almost didn't make it before time ran out. However, something is wrong and the boy begins coughing, making vital fluid come out of his mouth, and his knights rush to his aid. He had never felt like this before. Not even as a player, it made it seem like he caught a glimpse of eternal power. Raul borrowed the power of the item this time, but he is certain that one day, he will get there with his own strength. The magic circles are all destroyed. In his possession, there's the pocket teleportation device and a Mana Stone. He plans to later figure out how to use the item. Pierce appears, informing him that he found Nikki and the other hostages. He tries to mention the losses, but the young master says there was nothing he could do and asks him to collect the belongings to return them to the people. With the news that Nikki is not well, Raul asks them to hurry and get out of there. Jake asks about leaving the things behind, showing interest in keeping them and claiming many of the items will be useful. The knight explains that the value might not be measured in gold, and Raul realizes he is right. The armor of his enemy cannot be used by him, but it can serve as proof that they caught the Empire's spies and be used as a test subject for experiments too. The Imperial hunting dogs were not easy. They could easily defeat weaker nobles, making many players give up. Raul understands there is no need to stir them up for now and that it's best to focus on his own growth and expanding his influence. The young man says it's all part of the plan, asking them to forget it, and besides, saying that he was the one who defeated them, though Jake reminds him of the request not to interrupt. But to their joy, the boy says he will give everyone a bonus for the hard work, then asks them to return and rest well, which gets Jake excited. Raul wonders whether his knight is clever or just an idiot, but in any case, he asks Pierce for the report, and he says he will ensure there are no losses. The boy is curious to see what they will do. Not just that, but he also wants to know what kind of expression they will make after falling into their trap. His enemies want to know how far they went. The eldest of the Randall family asks the guide if they are really on the right track. They track Ashton to the forest but could not find any more traces beyond the healing at the sanctuary, because of which they lost money and swords. Jerry thinks they lost because they couldn't use mana skills in the city, and there's no way 12 knights would lose, especially with Jeremy having power armor. With Raul out of the city, he thinks this is their chance. The guide points the way where supposedly young Master Ashton is. Kale thinks the place looks a bit dangerous but says they need to go in and find out, and Jerry agrees since they are outside the city. Meanwhile, some knights are startled and wonder if all these people are from Ashton County and why there are so many. Raul and his knights are marching, taking the rescued hostages with them. The young master speaks to the captain who guided the civilians there as requested. People are gathered in the street, curious to know if it was he who rescued the hostages and happy to see their relatives again. Nakia, who is in the crowd, notices that her little sister Nikki is among the rescued. With a gentle smile, Raul hands the girl to her. He explains that she is not doing very well, but that they will treat her at the mansion, then calls for Bernard, who understands the message. Raul saved the lives of so many people who should have been eliminated, and thus changed the future of the alchemist who would have lived blinded by revenge. He believes that maybe she won't become a powerful alchemist like in the past, and the items and potions she invented may not appear in this world. Even so, he needs Nakia for the future of the county. Everything started to change when he went back to the past, and the boy doesn't care if history changes. Raul doesn't mind what means he has to use, even taking someone's future if he can save many. But he chose missions to gain his interest. He completed the mission during the night and saved everyone he could. Besides this safe city, he knows the mayor will visit him with rewards as soon as the sun rises. But even so, he feels restless. In the middle of the crowd, he looks at a poor woman crying for her son who did not return. Low-class people who could not pay for rewards, with some who never even had a chance. Raul's actions were focused only on missions and leveling up, and he realizes he never had a conversation with people who had no connection to that. He told himself he would live in the present when he reincarnated, yet he still feels like he's just playing around as if it were a game. For him, there's nothing wrong with living a life according to the system, but he wonders if just following missions is the right way. Until now, he had only been making plans following Ba's perspective, and he feels he needs to find something that only Raul can do, or he might repeat the same mistakes. Raul asks Philip for information and problems concerning the people who look discouraged among the crowd. Even feeling bad for asking, the young count also requests that they offer comfort, money, and help to find jobs for those who lost their families. The knight says it's unexpected since he thought Raul only intervened when things were advantageous to him, but that no one would refuse to do it. However, he says a certain someone would say no, making Jake offended as he defends himself, saying he doesn't hate doing good things. Even so, the blonde knight asks if they will still get their days off. Meanwhile, the crowd shouts for a long life to Ashton County and to young Master Raul. Raul knows their support will be very important when dealing with other guilds, and thinks it's a good idea to stay to level up and gain practical experience. Being very kind, the young master greets the people. Amid the crowd, a hooded figure watches him, as expected, when day breaks. Reynaldo is there saying that thanks to the boy, he can breathe a little easier, but Raul says he could have handled it even without him. The mayor mentions the report, and the young master is also surprised that evil forces were near Reuben Kingdom's territory for quite a long time. The man says it's not the first case of disappearance, but they couldn't do anything because of the treaty that forbids an army in Mira. They can only operate with guards, and even those men cannot show half of their abilities outside the city. Reynaldo says someone from the Randall Viscounty came saying they destroyed the hideout and demanded compensation, but Raul already has plans for that. The agreement is to make it seem like it was their own act, but the mayor thinks this is bad since the count will gain great reputation and rewards from the palace. Raul thanks him for the concern, but only asks that the favor he requested be fulfilled, and Reynaldo thinks he is a careful person and will handle the matter. The young master simply wants to leave the Randall family to deal with the hideout, making it their job to draw the Empire's attention as well. The mayor asks what Raul wants as a reward, something Raul expected, and he says he only wants a favor. Raul's interest is in the library that is in the mayor's mansion, and Reynaldo allows him to use it and even take a book if he wishes. Even so, the mayor thinks that's not enough and promises to show him the secret treasure and let him choose something as a gift. Reynaldo thinks his attitude is very generous, but Ashton doesn't understand why he is acting like that since he was supposed to be giving Raul a reward anyway. The woman who led the boy to the library tells him to feel free to look at everything. To him, the books may seem varied, but in fact they are a wonderful treasure, because it is a library full of skill books, and upon opening one, he is asked to confirm to acquire a B-rank skill called Piercing Thunder. Just thinking that all of them are skill books makes him feel full just by looking at them. With no guarantee he will be able to come back again, Raul intends to carefully search for the book he wants. Suddenly, he can feel a subtle light coming from one, so he decides to take a look at it. It is a study of ancient rituals, spells, and instructional methods for mental cultivation. Raul thinks the title is too long but opens the book anyway. The skill Quercus meditation art is used to cultivate spiritual power, and during daily life, it can purify the soul by communicating with nature. An exclusive method for users of physical abilities of S grade, and so Raul is happy to finally get his hands on it. In his past life, even with a B grade meditation art, Ba stayed at the top in the early stages, but was later overtaken due to the lack of spiritual power. When trying to acquire a path, it had been blocked by large guilds and rankers. Superpower books had worse drop rates and limited information. Information about Quercus meditation was revealed by a mage ranker who exposed that the mayors of starting cities were hiding S-grade skills, and that one could be found in Mira. As Be got one in Ignet, a skill meant only for mages, it ended up being a useless trap for him. This time, Raul is different. Since the effects of meditation don't stack, he believes he won't lack spiritual power and his physical skills can improve. If supported with enough spiritual power, it will be much easier to increase his proficiency too. Raul hopes to return to the level he had in his past life before a large-scale war with the Empire begins. He believes he will truly be able to turn the world upside down and is looking forward to that day. And there he ends his search. From Reynaldo's treasure, he chose a moderate mana ring after all. He has much better things in his hometown. What remains now is the personal reorganization he has been putting off for a long time. He completed all 70 missions, needs to organize the skill books below C grade and rare grade items, and also has the 50,000 coins he received. Through the status window, he sees that all his body attributes have surpassed 65 in 1 month and his level is 55 in hardcore mode, considering himself skilled. Superhumans called Swordmasters or superior psychokinetics have attributes above 90 like Ba, whose willpower and senses had reached that level. In this life, he intends to raise all of them even higher, and if the opportunity comes, he will try to be the first player to reach 100. It may seem like a dream, but he really has many opportunities as Raul, such as having the power armor. One of the items that followed him when he reincarnated and his skill encyclopedia unlocked through missions. In the case of this book, he received a mission to undo its next seal by completing 50 random skill proficiency missions. He has no idea what to do with the Regnator, and another thing is that he unlocked a new unique trait, the developer's inspecting eye. Thus, Raul understands that this must be the reason he can see information about NPCs and the flow of mana, though it was only a guess. The young master thinks that if he continues with Ba's same routine, he will cross paths with the Empire when trying to obtain fragments of dark magic stones. But he doesn't need to do that for now, since he is a player and also a citizen of the connection. Choice of scenario and mission depends solely on him. Raul is certain that he will no longer be a puppet moving according to the developer's will, even if he has to destroy it all. The next day, the young master is in his room when someone knocks at the door. Bernard informs him that Nikki has regained consciousness and that Nakia would like to see him. Raul says he will meet her. The young master is greeted as soon as he enters the room. Crying, the alchemist thanks him for what he did and says she doesn't know how to repay him, but he says it's okay, and that he needs her to become stronger until Nikki recovers. He then decides to check on her sister's condition. Very weakened, the girl thanks him for saving her. Nakia apologizes, saying her sister is very shy, but Raul says it's okay and that she's still very young. However, for him, it's a pity that she is not doing very well, and he thinks it's better to check more closely. Raul tries to look better at the girl's condition, and in her gaze he notices the reflection of a wave, which leaves him not understanding what it is. The young master is confused, wanting to know what is happening, also finding it strange that the others did not notice it. He even thinks for a moment that his eyes are playing tricks on him, but he tries to look again using the developer's inspecting eyes. And what he discovers leaves him quite shocked and unable to believe it. Raul thought she was just any ordinary child, but he is surprised to find that she possesses SS potential talent. Nikki's illness is reducing her attributes, and with her healing, Raul can't even imagine how strong she will become. Worried, Nakia calls out to him and asks what's wrong, and he tries to reassure her by saying it's nothing. But the young master knows he must try. Taking a closer look at this for Nikki, then a few days pass. Looking at some photos, Raul has everything he needs. Almost finishing what he needed to do in Mira, and everything's going well. They found more rogues and slave traders and rescued over 50 people, making the city the safest place. The construction of the guild house was completed and some members now live there. Many rescued civilians were willing to work for them, talented ones, so Raul is quite confident about that. But there is still one thing missing, and someone opens the door before he can think further. It's the alchemist Nakia, who came to meet him. Already settled in the house, he asks about Nikki's condition, and she replies that she is much better. She says it's thanks to the priests who are working hard and thanks him once again. However, despite her words, Raul knows that Nikki's condition hasn't improved at all, as it's not something that can be healed with divine power. Nakia asks if he will be leaving that day and says she still hasn't properly thanked him. Raul says he stayed longer than he should, tightening his schedule. The alchemist asks how she can help him because she thinks there must be some reason why he helped her and her sister so much. Despite her desire to help, she remembers that every noble she met was greedy and is afraid he might be the same. She doesn't want to disappoint him, but Raul says it's not what she is thinking. Raul asks her to read the papers in his hand first. Nakia takes the papers and is quite shocked by the content. It is a letter of pardon for all her past crimes and the withdrawal of all complaints made against her. The alchemist still doesn't grasp the truth of it and asks how he managed it, and smiling, Raul says that luckily, it's something solved with money. The document he handed to Nakia pardons all of her crimes, having cost a good amount of money, but for him, it doesn't compare to her value. She had suffered for 5 years because of mana restriction, a problem she thought she could never escape, but he managed to solve it so easily, being different from the others. Raul asks if she can tell him how her mana was restricted, only if she's comfortable with it, and Nakia begins saying that when she was a child, she left her city. Seeing her talent, her teacher helped her join the Alchemy Association, making her name there and specializing in the third circle at the age of 13. But then bad luck struck her suddenly with an epidemic in her hometown, and with it, she lost her family, leaving only Nikki behind when she arrived. She tried to take her to the association, but the bad luck didn't stop there. When her sister turned 6, she contracted an incurable disease, and Nakia believed it was because of the dangerous substances around her. Even reaching the 5th circle didn't help, and at the end of Nikki's life, She used alchemy on a person to keep her alive with materials stolen from the association. But the girl couldn't stay awake without medicine, and then Nakia was caught breaking the taboo and was expelled with the restriction. They stayed in Mira because it was safe and had the blessing that helped with the disease, but even that plus the restriction didn't seem good to people. Raul says she went through a lot. Then he offers her to drink the potion, surprising her by saying it will free her. Nakia then accepts, taking the tube, and without hesitation, drinks the potion. Soon it starts to take effect. Even after 5 years, she still feels relaxed, missing this sensation so much. Raul admires seeing her status change, noticing her attributes and unique traits like S-grade Master of Alchemy and A-grade Precise Tuner. Nakia also feels this transformation, and finally understands what he truly wants from her. Then Nakia declares that she will be loyal to Sir Raul, and says she looks forward to seeing him save many others as he did with her, Nikki. The young master extends his hand, and accepts her loyalty, saying he will never forget what was said to him. Raul Ashton picks up another pile of papers from his desk, and says he will hand them over to her. He says it's for Nikki's illness, manifilaria. Raul explains that a great alchemist who is no longer in this world left this behind, but there is a missing part, so more research will be necessary. He asks her to create a perfect cure using it, and this is his first order as her lord. This makes the alchemist unable to hold back her tears. Nakia promises to create a perfect cure even if it takes her entire life. That is her decision. For the rest of her life, she intends to live for him. Soon, Nakia leaves the room ready to fulfill the order. For Raul, it is still a bit strange to talk and act like this, but he understands that he needs to practice to be perfect since the place he lives is with citizens. The day was a great success, having the first guild member not given by his family, an alchemist who will leave her mark on history. He is sure that Nakia will be able to create the cure. The revelation is that the great alchemist who is no longer in this world is Nakia herself. In the past, she also fought against the disease with long-term research and created a cure, but for that, she sacrificed many people. That doesn't matter anymore. He was lucky that the information about Nakia's cure was still on Cafe Link. On purpose, he gave her the incomplete version for her evolution, hoping that she wouldn't blame herself when she manages to cure her sister, so he can give the rest of the information. With that, everything he had planned for Mira was completed, and now he needs to prepare for the next destination. Raul intends to go to the capital of the Rumen Kingdom, known as the Tomb of the Sword, the metropolis named Turium. He is very excited about what will happen in that huge city. Their arrival does not go unnoticed. Raul and his knights smile, impressed by so many people, imagining that the capital is different. Since they are from a county, they will enter directly without having to wait in line. Most of the guild members stayed in Mira, and only a minimal number of people came to make it easier. Entering the city, the young master notices something strange. There are no carriages or escorts. Raul asks the butler if he sent a message about their arrival, and Bernard confirms. He says it must be some mistake and therefore will first go to the mansion to bring people, but the young master asks if he knows where it is so they can go together. But Bernard starts asking citizens if they know where the Ashton County mansion is. People have no idea about it and even ask if there is such a place in Turium, advising them to go to the Noble District. Even the Noble District Patrol says they haven't heard of an Ashton County mansion and therefore do not allow them entry. Raul didn't expect his family to be popular, but this problem wasn't in the plans. Already Jake yells at them for not knowing who they are. For the young master, it's normal for civilians not to know them, but it's strange that no one knows, and he had heard about a mansion where trade happens between nobles and royalty. He then asks Bernard to go to the office and get the address, and Bernard agrees without complaining. With the document in hand, the knight finds it strange and says that the location belongs to Baron Gendar. The man says he has been living there for about 10 years and offers to take them there for now. Raul asks Bernard for information, and he explains that the Baron, a man in his 50s, is a distant cousin responsible for international relations. With that, the young master orders them to go to the mansion because he wants to see it for himself. As soon as they arrive, they are stopped by knights who demand to know who he is. Raul states his position as the youngest son of Ashton County and asks about the Baron, but the guards demand an invitation. Even Philip finds the demand strange and asks if they came to the party without an invitation. The man asks them to wait in a corner, claiming he will return shortly. Raul seems displeased to know there is a party going on, and he is not the only one irritated. Jake rebels and asks if they are really going to let the owner of the place wait outside, demanding that Baron Gendar come out of the mansion. But this only worsens the situation and makes the knights sound the intruder alarm. Only instead of an attack, the lances fall to the ground, and the men run away like cowards. Jake is confused, trying to understand what happened for them to flee, and Raul takes advantage of it to enter. However, they are stopped once again. An armed man with a sword shouts that they are not allowed and demands to know who he is. Philip introduces himself as a knight of Ashton County and asks about the Baron, and the swordsman asks what they want with Gendar. Realizing who he is serving, the man is shocked. He apologizes and says he knew of their arrival, but it was too late, and that he will inform the Baron. Everyone finds this reception strange, trying to understand what is happening. The place is quite large, which could take some time to walk around even with a carriage. Raul's eyes focus on a specific place. It is the building that only the direct lineage of the Ashton County can use, and the young master wants to know why he is hearing music coming from there. He also notices strange people sitting in the front garden. Jake asks if there is any event today since someone mentioned a party, and a knight explains it is the Baron's son's birthday, and that parties always happen. While the blonde gets irritated by the situation, Raul observes everything carefully. Someone comes down the stairs to meet them. An elderly large man asks if he is Raul, finding him very grown up. With his ability, the boy analyzes him, noticing he seems too strong. Despite being level 50, he is not a specialist, and thus the young master understands why other families look down on the Ashtons. He also understood why his father left him in charge of international relations despite not agreeing, so Raul asks if he knows him. With a smile, Gender says it has been a long time and that he is like an uncle to the boy since he and the Count are like brothers, but the young master denies knowing him. The man says it is difficult to understand the family tree because it is a bit complicated and asks to be called uncle. But Raul does not intend to let him take advantage and asks Bernard to explain their relationship. The Airbender says once again that Baron Gendar is his second cousin to Count Ashton, and therefore he is Raul's third cousin and responsible for foreign relations in the capital, leaving the big man irritated. Gendar asks if his father did not teach him to respect elders. Raul asks if he is close to Melvin or just not afraid of the county. The boy asks his knight who can speak to him like that, and Philip explains that only the Count's younger brother can because of the hierarchy. Raul speaks of the Viscount title he will receive upon reaching adulthood, as well as lands, and demands to know why a cousin he has never heard of is belittling him. The man uses the excuse of forgetting that he is now an adult and promises to respect him, but the young master only wants an explanation of what is happening there. But Gendar claims not to know what he is talking about, and this time Philip speaks about not having had an escort despite having sent many messages. As an excuse, he says he sent a carriage, but there must have been some mistake, and the knight demands to know the reason for the party in the main building. Once again, he tries to favor the situation, saying that everything is part of foreign relations and asks what a guard knows about nobility. This makes Philip irritated, but he decides to let it go for now since the young master is there, and at that moment Pierce appears with the invitation he found. Using it as evidence, Raul says that the party does not seem to have any relation to the Ashton County and all he can see is the Gendar family crest. Frightened, he tries to say that it is a formal celebration of the Ashton County, and the boy refutes by saying that even the address is in the Baron's name. The arrogant man says once again that it is just an invitation and wishes to end the discussion by claiming that it is beyond Raul's authority. The young master asks if he really thinks the party is right, and Gendar explains that it is a long tradition to use the ballroom when the mansion is empty. Raul knows that he is not wrong since the practice is common, but for that, he needs the personal permission of Count Ashton. And as temporary Viscount, he orders that the party ends within 1 hour, and that a report on the funds spent be made. The Baron does not accept this very well, saying that he cannot just send them away and demands to know if they have authority to a child. Patiently, Raul asks if he is not going to follow the order. Intimidatingly, the boy asks if he does not care about the family and says that he has no guests there he cares about. By sheer pressure, the Baron says he will end the party but warns that Raul will regret what he did. But the young master is calm since the worst that could happen is his father yelling a little, and he is curious to know what gave the arrogant man so much confidence. He knows he has no proof about problems in the Ashton County, but maybe he can find something there. And who knows, he might have great luck. The problems have only just begun. They discover that the place they were escorted to is not the main building, but rather an annex of the mansion. The servant explains that it was the Baron's order for him to stay in a quiet place, which the clever boy knows is a lie. But Raul does not accept it, and says he will not stay listening to this, and will go to the main building, accompanied by his men. They quickly arrive at the main location. Raul opens the doors, irritated with the whole situation. Even more so after discovering that the 3-story mansion and the office are being used by the Baron's entire family as housing. The Master Count demands an explanation, asking if it is a tradition for ministers and similar officials to occupy the Count's office, and the man says it is borrowed. But the boy does not want to talk and demands that everyone leave, warning that he will not spare anyone's head even if they are family. He also removes the title of Minister of Foreign Affairs from the Baron, leaving the man very irritated. Raul still gives him a chance to complain as long as he comes the next day with documentation showing that he acted according to his duties. Irritated, the arrogant man says nothing. He just leaves the room, leaving Ashton and his men there. Baron Gendar also moves away from the party, and Raul finds it the perfect moment to find the materials he needs, as he was worried they might have been discarded, but luckily, they are there. All documents related to the management and finances of the mansion were left in the office, and he believes it will be something easy. In his past life, he studied administration and worked in a trading company, and Bernard is the best specialist for mansion-related matters. Philip enters, informing about the Baron's departure with his family, and curious, the young master asks if they really left without causing trouble. The knight says it was unexpected, and that they left quietly with nothing but the essentials, but Raul does not believe this and knows they will return. The royal guard suggests giving them more time, but the young master's advice is that it is more efficient to catch them while they underestimate them. Raul also plans to use the place as a branch of the guild until he finds an ideal location in the capital, and because it is his thing, he will not let worms play around. Pierce informs that the Baron has other support and fears something strange might happen, but Rawl tells him not to worry and to trust the county more. Excited, Jake says to end the boring conversation and take a look around the mansion, doing only what the young master commands. Rawl warns that perhaps the next day they will need to use a bit more force, so it would be good for them to rest. Then he dismisses everyone except Bernard. The knights are dragged away by Jake, leaving the two alone. Rawl simply asks the butler if he knows what he needs to look for, and he agrees, saying it is his specialty. One day passes in the capital city. Rawl trains psychokinesis by levitating swords and asks to try once more. The blades meet in the air for a duel, and only one side is resistant. Bernard's swords fall to the ground. In any case, Rawl says he has improved a lot and that he never imagined he would be able to handle 2 daggers like that, and the butler says he still has much to learn. It has been a month and a half since he awakened his power, and the young master finds the butler talented and hopes that the redhead becomes a multi-talented psychic. The young master suggests martial arts training, claiming it is easy and efficient to combine several skills at the beginning. The two prepare for training, but the redhead notices the presence of someone in the mansion. And this makes Rawl happy, as it is something expected of a wind mage with long-range perception abilities, so he tells him to greet the guests. Bernard asks if he should bring what they prepared the night before, and the boy agrees. After all, he wants to be rewarded for the hard work. The butler thinks about how something always happens whenever the young master makes that expression and hopes is not something stupid. As always with a comment, Jake asks if Rawl buried some treasure there. He does not understand why so many people are gathered there. Among the escort knights, some are demonstrating colossal vigor, and there are even soldiers outside the mansion. Jake is worried, as it seems like something their group cannot handle alone, and wonders if the young master has something in mind. Meanwhile, Gender smiles, thinking how well things are going and that his cousin took the bait very easily. He believes that all the work will be completed once Rawl leaves, and he will also secure a position. Blood relatives of the Ashton County residing in the capital seem to have gathered because of what happened the previous night. Everything the Baron lost is not just his problem, since the others also used to hold banquets in the mansion using county funds. Gender knows it was a mistake to hold the party in his name and use the office, but they don't know that, and he believes Rawl doesn't know what he's gotten himself into. With a malicious smile, he thinks about not understanding why the Count trusted the youngest but plans to use him very well. Rawl walks majestically, and his relatives even wonder if someone with such a beautiful face is really of their lineage. They can't believe that a 15-year-old kid is troubling Baron Gendar. Another asks about him having won the fencing tournament. The young master smiles and says he unexpectedly ended up before many people, and asks if they are all there because of the matter with the Baron. It is Gender himself who responds, saying that the blood relatives are angry about his behavior, demanding apologies and that he fix what he did. Rawl asks if he can assume the man is the representative of all of them, and says that as promised he will try to separate his mistakes and successes. Pointing his finger, the Baron says that the mansion has been managed by them for decades, and that it is not something to be messed up by someone they don't even know. Everyone agrees with him, denying Rawl's authority and complaining about the reduction in the money sent. The young master thinks that this way he won't have time to talk about what Gender did, but that doesn't matter at the moment. Using his ocular ability, he analyzes the people, believing that things might end up more complicated than he expected. A total of 5 forces have gathered. First, the blood relatives. Second, the spies from the Imperial hunting dogs, which clearly shows the Empire is behind the conflicts on the other side of the continent. But the third category is unexpected. The Knights of the Delamian family, one of the 5 great families of the Brennan Republic. Rawl also sees several intermediate specialist knights who has no idea why they appeared there, and there are still more hated people there, such as the Knights of Viscount Randall, with Huffle of level 61 standing out, the 4th young master of the family. The young master doesn't know about his skills but wonders why someone whose very presence is a weapon would be there, and believes it is because of Mira. And finally, the 5th force. The traitors of the family, who are the ones truly responsible behind all this commotion and who will come to seize leadership when everything goes wrong. Titus is level 65 with a distorted fighting spirit, one of his unique traits, and many attributes above 58. He is the eldest son of his uncle Viscount Jaden. The Count has 2 brothers, the eldest Jaden and the youngest Austin. Among the 3, Melvin was more talented, but due to primogeniture, Jaden would be the next Count. He was arrogant and violent. If something bothered him, he would hurt or eliminate someone. Melvin reached the level of intermediate specialist and gained more support to become Count, and Jaden felt threatened and envious, thus trying to eliminate his brother. In the end, the elder was caught in the assassination attempt and lost his privileges. Time passed, and the middle son became the Count. The elder still received the title of Viscount and a large amount of land, but he could not accept the fact that he lost the title of Count to his brother. He ended up selling his assets to a rival family, that of Marcus McNeil, and left the kingdom, abandoning his followers. All of this happened 15 years ago when Rawl Ashton was born, and seeing Jaden's son there, the young master understands where Baron Gendar is involved. The people there lost nothing from what happened, so they do not hate the Viscount, they just think they have a chance to seize power. In his life as Ba, Ashton County split into multiple factions and fell, and Rawl thinks maybe they made the right choice. However, that would only apply if he were not there, and for that reason, he will show each one the mistake they made. Philip also understands what is happening and realizes it is the moment to act. He makes noise, ending the enraged shouts of the crowd. Raul says he has heard enough and would like to say something, asking his two men to hand something over to them. Even confused, the people accept the books. It is the financial management report of the property with investigation materials and evidence about Baron Gender's actions. Immediately, they all open them to check. The information shocks the people and the accused himself is irritated. He quickly tries to defend himself by saying that everything is false. The supporters comment that everything seems legitimate, but it is hard to believe, and Gender says the boy arrived just a day ago and still accuse him of having done all that. Staying calm, Raul asks if they can now have a real conversation. In the report, it states that 200 apprentices are receiving free lessons at the mansion, and the young master asks where they are. The Baron replies that they gave up and fooled with the equipment. The boy uses this against him, asking if all 200 were from somewhere else and not the capital, which is very strange. The arrogant man shouts again, saying they fled and that the selection depends on him, and Raul says there is much to uncover but decides to move to another topic. It is written that he gifted other barons with 100 golden swords, but according to the investigative report, 10 replicas were given to each. It also mentions the supposed mercenaries hired who are not there, and the frequent parties in the main building. Thus, Raul says he cannot understand what any of this has to do with the use of the property's funds. In the end, listing all of this impressed the boy once again, and he had to stay up late to find it. He discovered that some documents were falsified, having to break into the Baron's house, finding the true accounting book using his analysis and Pierce's observation skills. In the end, Bernard organized everything and put it into a book. Then he used the copying skill to make dozens of copies. After all, everyone there must know how much money the Baron has embezzled up to this point. Raul says that it seems more than half of the property's expenses were due to theft and asks if anyone disagrees with Gender's dismissal. The man claps, saying how impressive all this is. Arrogantly, he asks how long the boy prepared, whether it was 1 year or 2, and ultimately accuses the nephew of being a bad person. The young master is curious to know what the man is trying to do. Gender asks if anyone felt something suspicious. He claims he has never seen such an organized report in his life and that formal investigations can have 3 pages, not 30 like the one he made. The Baron points out that the boy did all that in 1 day, which doesn't make sense, and accuses Raul of having prepared it beforehand to dismiss and strip the family of power in the capital. In a way, this causes outrage, and his supporters believe it is a political intrigue and that Ashton is trying to save on budget. Others accuse that they will deny support to other families if Baron Gender is dismissed. The arrogant man says they must not let this happen and calls for Jackson. He hands over a list with demands for Raul to sign and be forgiven for the disrespect, and the boy asks his knight to check it. The demand is to transfer the property to them, as well as the management of the mansion to be determined by the families in the capital. The third demand is to allow the use of the exclusive fencing skill of the main family to be taught to them. Finding it absurd, Jake asks if they have lost their minds to be demanding this when they were spending the money earned by knights eliminating monsters, which they didn't like, but the blonde doesn't care and refuses to give away the house, calling them all mongrels. And his attitude irritates the Baron. He asks how the knight dares insult them and draws a weapon with a sharp spear. The Ashton Guard also draws their weapons, as does the other side. A confrontation is about to form, but Raul asks for it to stop. The Baron notices that the tall and very strong-looking man did not care about the dagger he pulled to threaten. The 3 are the best knights in the Golden Bear Order, and he doesn't stand a chance. To try to save himself, he tells Raul that he was insulted, and if he doesn't execute and apologize, he will consider Raul the same. With a smile, the boy says it's not as if Sir Jake did anything wrong, and asks him to stop acting. The young master says he didn't expect this to be resolved with documents, thinking that at the very least he would be embarrassed. With no more patience, Raul grabs his legendary sword, then aims his spear at the ground, and says he believes he is a stronger person than he thought. Raul accuses him of knowing that he would never sign the document demanding a bunch of crap, then asks him to say what he really wants. But the Baron trembles in fear because he heard that the youngest son was the weakest and talentless, but now realizes he can no longer retreat. As an attempt to seem strong, the arrogant man says there's no point in the boy trying to lie because he won't leave without signing. His supporters already have their swords drawn, ready for whatever comes. This gives Gender more strength, who tells the boy to think carefully. However, Raul maintains his smile and asks if he really wants to continue with this. Despite being young, he fears no harm even when faced with 5 groups threatening him. The boy says that the Baron's actions are the same as declaring war against the county. People start switching sides and tell Gender that this was not what they agreed on and that he's crazy if he plans to declare war against the county. But the man says it's too late and that they are all in the same boat, asking if they really think the Count will forgive them. Raul interrupts them and asks what the Baron intends to do since he will not sign the document. Thinking he is still in control, he replies that hundreds of knights and guards will attack the boy when he gives the order. In any case, the arrogant man prepared a secret weapon just in case, one that even the Golden Bears will not be able to handle. But as the young Count expected, some are only watching, so there's nothing stopping him. Smiling, Raul points his sword and asks what he intends to do. This impresses Gendar, seeing how confident he is, as he thought he could threaten him with the armed soldiers. After all, the important weapon is the last resort, and if used, it will cause a war. But with no alternative, he intends to use it. It would have been easier for the Baron if the boy were as weak as the rumors said. With the badge, he says that because he was insulted with the documents and disrespected in front of everyone, he will seek justice. Then the Baron requests a proof of lineage. Raul is confused because this is a duel that can only be used once in a lifetime. People comment on him using the only way to fight against his superiors here, even with his own nephew. Staying calm, Raul asks if he is serious and why he should accept such a request. But the man says is better than having authority taken by force. The young master says then he will have the honor of taking the nephew's authority through an honorable duel. The Baron asks him to decide, but if he refuses, he will have to use force. But Raul doesn't worry much since he knows his uncle already knows the answer even while acting strong. He asks what the conditions are since he believes it will not be the old man who will duel. Gendar's suggestion is 3 on each side with one-on-one duels and the last one standing wins, and because it's a proof of lineage, he must choose 3 from his side. It is Philip who steps forward, saying it's unfair since on Ashton's side there's only Raul, and the Baron says that the others, if they think Raul is right, can side with him. The knight tries to argue, but Raul silences him and wants to know about the bet, saying he will sign the document if he loses. Gendar tries to say he has nothing to offer, but the young master reminds him that it has to be a fair bet. Then the boy says that if he wins, he will take for himself all the houses of the families that signed the document, and he also says that if they don't agree, there will be no duel. The Baron thinks that doing this will make the families turn against him, but it's not bad for him who only needs the document signed by the mansion. Gendar then agrees, asking if he really accepts the duel, and Philip still tries to remind his master that there are other ways. Although his Meg is right, the boy decided to accept and even receive a mission for it, so he will not back down. Raul asks his knight if he thinks he will lose, but Philip says she is worried that unexpected situations might occur. Through the guild chat, the boy says they can interfere if there's any problem since he knows they will not accept the result anyway. In the end, Raul accepts the duel and asks about the judge since he doesn't want the man to act irrationally after the defeat, and the Baron says he has a special guest. From the crowd, he looks at someone specific, asking if he accepts, and with a smile, the young man cannot deny. Just like the young master, the other families want to know who the young man is. Gendar introduces him as someone known for his sword and personality in the capital, under the codename the Rising Star of the Reuben Kingdom. This is Hafel Randall, the Viscount's 4th son. His presence causes a small commotion. He asks people to calm down, saying he is there because he was invited and only came to greet Raul, not expecting the party to turn into a funeral. In any case, the young master believes he will be a fair judge, and with a smile, the Viscount agrees. They organize themselves so that the duel can take place with the representatives present, and everything is as Raul expected. No one wanted to stand by his side, which he sees as an advantage by not having to decide which trash is decent or not. The first match begins. Aaron, 3rd son of the Gendar family, is the representative, and the young man is angry since his party was ruined by the weakest of the Ashtons, thinking the boy is all confident just because he won a countryside tournament, intending to make Raul beg. Then the duel begins. Aaron throws his first strike, shouting that this will be the end of his cousin. Raul doesn't even move beyond activating his skill, and no one understands what happened. Without humor, the judge gives the signal to end it. Thus, the winner is Ashton, who easily knocked down his opponent, leaving the entire audience shocked. It took only one strike to bring down Aaron and leave Gendar irritated because his son lowered his guard and lost the chance to restore the family's honor. The Baron asks for the next match to start quickly. Another person steps up for the fight. It is Baron Kesby, a quite decent swordsman from the capital, leaving Raul excited for this match. The attack quickly begins from the other side, and the young master uses his sword to defend against the strike. This makes the man smile, saying he knows the basics well. He also notices Raul's good reflexes, managing to understand how Aaron lost on the first blow. The Baron attempts a powerful strike with his sword, knowing it's not something he would normally use against a child 20 years younger than him, but he has too much at stake. Thus, against Raul, he uses the Bear Strike. Everything lights up with powerful energy, preventing others from seeing what's happening. But not everything is as the swordsman expected, because Raul Ashton blocked his powerful Bear Strike. The battle continues fiercely, with neither side giving up. The young master wonders what the Baron is thinking, using a clumsy imitation of a family art in which Raul holds the advantage. The swordsman was really surprised that the technique didn't work, realizing the obvious reason. So he tries something else, attacking the young Ashton with all his strength, with another art learned in the capital, and the young master notices that at least this one was a bit better. People celebrate, believing in the defeat of a child without real combat experience. For Raul, they are a bunch of losers with inferiority complexes who left their hometowns to stay in the capital. There are also relatives who possess strength beyond swordsmanship and came with bigger dreams, but they are not here. His sword begins to glow with a golden light, and he unleashes a strike against his enemy. Raul says that honestly it's a shame because if he had gone deeper into the family art instead of mixing everything, he could have overcome the obstacle. His words do not please the Baron, who thinks Raul is just a brat. He cannot accept Raul giving him advice, especially when he has been mastering the bear strike for the past 15 years. His next attack is the Storm Wolf. The specter of the wild beast charges toward the young master. People are surprised by the Templeton family's technique and believe he learned it in the army. Everyone hopes he will win this time. But Raul is not willing to let things end like that, and launches a counterattack, leaving the Baron with a scared expression. Raul says he doesn't understand. What matters is not the type of sword art you learn, but how well you learn it. Kespi asks if he thinks he can fight just with such a basic form of swordsmanship. But Raul doesn't care about the criticism. It's the Baron's turn to defend, but he ends up receiving an unexpected cut on his leg. He wonders what sword form that was that changed direction in an instant. The Baron tries to guess what's coming next. If it's the 5th form of Bear Strike, Smoothing and Piercing, but it's the 8th form, Horizontal Slash. He tries to guess if the next is the 3rd, Spin and Pierce, or the 6th form, Vertical Cut. It's impossible to tell because Raul is switching sword forms so fast that he can't react. Another strike is delivered. Kespi wonders if it's possible to link so many sword forms together like that. Sword arts are paths that combine basic styles with cuts and thrusts, which is easy to see among these forms. Thus, when using swordsmanship, it's common to change them by linking various techniques. But Raul's connection is happening many times very fast and so perfectly that it becomes difficult to predict. Thus, the Baron wonders if this is the difference in talent between them. Another strike is launched against him, which he defends. However, Raul is more skilled and knocks his sword to the ground. Not even the Baron can believe what just happened. The young master asks him if just the standard sword combination is enough and if the family arts are not that good. Kespi trembles with fear, calling the boy a monster. With that level of visual precision, reaction speed, and judgment, sword arts are not important, and the Baron, who expected victory, falls to the ground defeated. Thus, Raul becomes the champion of the second round. This scares his enemies who think the situation is getting strange, especially after hearing rumors that he hadn't learned proper swordsmanship. Jember asks them not to worry because he is just a boy at the sword user level relying on the last fighter. And this encourages everyone thinking of the person they believe will bring them victory. Hafael asks for the 3rd representative to step forward. For Randall, it is amusing to watch the Ashtons attack each other, although he wanted Raul to lose. Whoever wins has nothing to do with him. The 3rd one steps forward, happy that it is finally his turn. The judge wonders if the man's name is Dave, Gender's eldest son, whom he heard has surpassed his obstacle. For him, it doesn't matter, he just wishes the boy would suffer a lot until the end. Then the 3rd match begins, and it is everyone's wish that Dave destroys Raul. Even the young master notices that this time they are giving it their all. Gender's eldest warns him to give up the match while he is still being nice. Otherwise, he will cut off all his limbs with his sword. Raul observes the blade filled with such pure mana, which is expected from Dave. After all, specialists are indeed different. The young master tells him to stop saying nonsense and come fight. The younger Gender obeys, saying he will give him everything he asked for. Going on the attack, he tells the boy not to regret it later. But Raul is not playing around either, and prepares to face him. With his sword charged with mana, the attack he delivers forces Dave to defend. The man says he's just as good at fighting as he is at making noise. His physical enhancement is really good. This makes Raul wonder how long the effect will last. His eyes are closely observing his opponent. Looking at the sword, he notices the mana disappearing and, as he thought, doesn't last long. Dave continues his strikes and asks if the boy is just going to keep blocking. Another attack is directed at Raul, who defends with his sword. However, this one was more powerful, cracking the blade, a consequence of mana colliding between an intermediate user and a specialist. But as he thought, it is not a true mana blade, and now that he has seen everything, he wants to end it quickly. Raul disappears from Dave's field of vision. Suddenly, the boy appears at his side, accusing him of being a false specialist and a dog of the Empire. This irritates the man, who says it's a lot of arrogance on his part, raising his sword for a fatal strike. But Raul stays on defense without fearing the danger, having his weapon's blade broken by the strike. The light coming from the sword blinds his opponent, and Raul takes advantage of this moment to punch him, delivering a strong punch to Dave, who didn't even expect it. The blow leaves the Baron's hair unbalanced, which makes it the perfect moment for the young Count to deliver the coup de grace, wishing him to rest in peace. Raul punches his cousin right in the middle of the face. With the strong impact, he is thrown far away. Dave even has his nose broken, with his vital fluid gushing out. Wiping his hands after the job is done, Raul calls for the judge, while everyone else looks at the fallen man. Even against his will, Hathel declares the young Ashton the winner. The boy walks toward his companions while the enemy side stares at him. He laments the loss of the sword he likes so much, and his knights congratulate him on a job well done. Raul asks Philip to arrest Dave when everything is over because he believes he has the Empire's stigma on his body. The knight agrees and says he also noticed that his movements seem unusual, and Pierce informs that he brought an extra sword. He takes the sword from his archer and asks what he should do at that moment. Gendar cannot believe that it is his son lying there because even though he had broken the rules, he was still a sword specialist. Soon he accuses the young master of being a fraud and having done something as the boy expected. He wants to cancel the duel, not accepting the result. The Baron knows that everything is useless. His plans are already ruined. Gendar still tries to hold on to the documents, as it is the only way to stay close to Jaden or the Randall family. He then shouts for them to seize the documents. The others obey his order. With everything at stake, there is no turning back. But all of this was already expected by the young count, and the order is to play the same game. However, they didn't even need to draw their swords because someone yells not to touch Raul. That was the most unexpected thing for him, because the house servants stand in front, supporting the rightful owner. Armed, the order is not to retreat and not to let them get close to Raul. Meanwhile, the boy is interested in trying to understand what is happening. At the moment, it seems like he stumbled upon an unexpected treasure. Outraged, the Baron calls them inferior worms and asks if that's how they repay the favor. But a servant says there is no favor at all, since it was he who withdrew the donations meant for them, and they only found out because of Sir Raul's revelation. They are people recommended by the Ashtons to the Royal Academy for having done well in the coming-of-age tournament. With the dormitories closed during the holidays, they stay at the mansion. The money for their support during this period was taken by Gendar, who used them as servants to cut costs related to this. Jake is shocked by all this madness and says he is not surprised that the Baron is in command there, while Raul believes the man was not like that from the beginning. The knight asks what he should do because he knows someone will get hurt if a fight starts, and the young master says someone is about to arrive. The person finally arrives, making everyone's eyes widen in fear. The tall figure makes them run away even more terrified. Nobody really understands what is happening yet. They only know they are in serious trouble. The man enters stomping heavily without caring about who is in his way. A tall, very strong blonde man asks who is swinging a sword inside Ashton County's mansion. With an inhumanly large body and an arm the size of a waist, the Baron discovers it is Dylan, the Count's heir. He keeps taking heavy steps, and the heir is not alone, being accompanied by his guard. Dylan keeps walking without saying a single word, only showing off his strong physique. An enemy knight holds a dagger and trembles in fear as he points it. The strong man just stares at him. Then the knight learns to fly as he is thrown out through the window. With a threatening look, Dylan tells them to stay still. People whisper about him being the strongest in the kingdom. The warrior only cares about the boy, and soon they point to Sir Raul. The heavy blade is stuck into the ground, and the big guy picks up his little brother. Smiling, he lifts Raul into the air and asks how he's doing, if anyone is bullying him, and even if he's eating and sleeping well. Dylan wants to know if his little brother is really okay, and the young master just wants to be back on the ground because he's dizzy. The man says Raul has grown a lot in the last 2 months, but not enough because he needs to have big muscles like his. Raul asks if he came from home like that. He confirms, saying that clothes are uncomfortable and it's cooler to show his body to everyone in the capital, and the boy laments the hair walking around shirtless. Messing up his brother's hair, Dylan says a man has to stay healthy. Giving a threatening smile, he says that if he had a wonderful body like his, for him, the clownish relatives wouldn't have even dared to draw their swords. Then the hare asks about ending this and questions how they have the courage to draw swords inside Ashton's mansion. The Golden Bear's guard draws their swords and points them at the enemies. Everything will be fine, but Raul wonders why his brother brought the runner-up and all the high-ranked knights who could wipe out the Baron's family. Speaking of which, Gendar is very nervous, realizing that the attempt to turn the tables didn't work. The fourth son of the Randall family is very busy hiding. The knights from the Republic of Brennan, whom he considered his secret weapon, all turn their backs. Smiling, Dylan wants to know who the people gathered there are. He spots someone trying to hide, and discovers a Randall among them, calling him over to greet him as a brother. Having his shoulder hit hard, Hafal says it's been a long time since the two last saw each other, and Dylan asks which son he is. The big guy asks if he still bullies the younger kids along with the third and sixth, and the redhead defends himself, saying that was a long time ago. With his frightening gaze, the Count's heir asks if he is getting angry and stuttering. Hafal denies it. Dylan says he had fun and warns that he won't be able to talk. He keeps acting like that and starting the family problem. He tells him to stay out of it. Kaima, the hare, asks if he wants to stay and chat, but wisely Hafal quickly says he has things to do at home. And before he leaves, Dylan sends the warning that if the firstborn comes to him, he will accept a duel. The Count's heir then asks the others to leave because now it's a family matter. Scaring the enemies, he says that whoever drew their weapon must stay to have a little chat. Grabbing his sword, he starts the conversation by asking what good news they have. Then he asks about the document the Baron is forcing them to sign. Still on the same night of the incident, Raul thanks his brother but asks if he wasn't a bit too extreme, which his brother doesn't really care about. The young one remembers all the people he brought, also remembering that he has a wife and son, but Dylan just laughs, saying he only gave necessary help with the best people. The young miss contacted his brother the night before and believes he must have rushed to gather everyone to come to the capital. Then the big guy asks why he thinks their father gave him the seal and says it was easier to handle things because he came. Raul agrees that the hare's arrival made things easier, and his brother only got there quickly because of the portal, which must have cost 3,000 gold coins. Curious, Dylan asks what he plans to do with about 30 people, and Raul quickly says he will make everyone pay without forgetting a single one. But the young master remembers that they are still relatives and asks if their father would be okay with that, and the elder says he never got an answer, so he should take advantage of that. Raul believes it was Dylan who planned everything, not Melvin, since the cafe link said the young man is very political and good at calculations. Combining brain and muscles, the boy thinks that he is definitely stronger than normal. Dylan thinks his brother is too, and besides saying he would just cut off the relatives, he praises him for the good work. Raul says he didn't do anything except charge forward. But the big guy finds it very cute, saying that he wrote the report and won the duels. The boy tries to resist by telling him to do that with Libby. He says he wants to, but his wife won't let him, even though he's the father, and when shaken, the young master understands why. Getting serious again, Raul shows his brother a document proving the lineage between him and the Baron and asks what they should do with it. The houses of the 27 people who asked for the removal of the seal are in his possession, and Dylan says he can do whatever he wants, offering help with that. The boy is shocked because it's worth at least 100,000 coins, and he believed the family would take charge since it's a relative's dispute. The hare explains that it's the reward for dueling them, rightfully his, without worrying about others, and even gives the tip that a man needs to be confident. And he still says that he is an Ashton and handing over the documents. He says the little brother deserves it. Raul promises to try to be a more confident man and asks if he can ask for a favor. The gun master asks him to take care of things this time, and regarding the Baron's house, he will use it because he understands that its value depends on the person. Dylan agrees to take care of everything and promises to teach him something as a reward, warning him to meet him in the field the next morning. Tearing his shirt, the hare says the reward is teaching him how to have those perfect muscles. He asks if the little brother is excited and eager to learn, and scared. The boy pretends he is. The hare says it's obvious he is, and that their father and Lawrence are curious too, but he will only teach Raul, which makes Raul curious. However, he spent an entire hellish month with his brother and swore never to train with him again. Finally, the academy admission day arrived, and Bernard says goodbye, asking his young master to stay safe. He wishes him great results on the placement exam, and Raul says he will take it easy, seeing no need to go all out against children. Dylan asks if he's really going to take it easy, and confirming, the boy asks if there's any need to give his all. The big guy agrees and says he'll come back when his admission ends, asking him not to worry about him and to do whatever he wants. It felt strange because Raul thought he would say to give his best, but he can take it easy and graduate from the academy, which is an excuse to stay away from home. Thinking about getting along with the kids already makes him tired. The young master just wants to go calmly. The trip proceeds peacefully with his escort. The place is very large, and he is not the only one wanting to join it. Raul comments that he didn't expect so many people, and Dylan explains that it's a special day and that those who delayed their admissions are here now. The youngest remembers not having any information in the cafe link, having made a list of who was expected this year, and believes something must have happened there. But he's not expecting to have a life inside the academy, so he shouldn't care. Gerald Rubin, Dalton Templeton, Caleb Randall, and Raul Ashton are among those admitted to the place. The boy tells Philip that he informed him there would be no lineage from warrior families, but even the prince is there, and the knight explains that there had been no news since Mira. And he realizes that he didn't receive any news because he spent a month training with his brother, so the boy asks Dylan what's going on. The hare says he'll find out soon, and that he can take it easy during the exams, congratulating him on his admission. But Raul realizes something is wrong, though he can only find out by entering. The students walk around the academy grounds. The young master asks his knights to split up and gather information, especially about the testing center. All of this is a drag because he was expecting weak opponents, but it's clear there are many high-ranked nobles. He says he doesn't want to compete with kids his age, and Philip thinks it's an order, but the boy was just talking to himself. Raul plans to stay calm since he can still continue with his plan, and soon someone announces for everyone to be attentive for the ceremony. The man on stage welcomes everyone to the Reuben Kingdom Academy and says he will now introduce the team members. The young master thinks he doesn't need to pay attention since he researched all of them, but he is surprised by who will be the temporary vice president of the academy, as well as president of the Magic and Administration Department. And the man is Alfredo Gray, one of the 3 sages of the continent and an 8th Circle Archmage. Raul wonders why he is there. He climbs the stage and gives greetings, reinforcing his temporary position at the prestigious and venerable Reuben Kingdom Academy. His illusion and vision magic are unmatched, and he is also known for his alchemy. Once again, Raul wonders what made him come here. The man is known for wandering the lands, nicknamed the Nomad Sage. Even the Grey Tower needs to occasionally request the location of their master from the Information Guild. And the young master wonders again if this person will really be the Academy's temporary vice president. This is different from what he expected, as he was supposed to appear only after alliances were formed. Meanwhile, the man explains the inclusion of vision magic. The president continues, speaking about the curriculum change with the update of materials, asking students to pay attention to the shared items. Raul believes everything is still at the same level. He was already planning to take it easy, but Spence also mentions a reward for those who stand out. This last statement catches the boy's attention, who thought the test was only to divide the classes. The sword department has classes S, A, B, C, and D, and only 60 enter the first class, so for him it will be easy. The hard part is deciding whether to give his best. Not to mention that he doesn't even know what the reward is, but Jake appears saying the prize doesn't seem anything special. There are advantages like access to the library, personal magic training, and a solo item from the Academy's workshop. Thus, Raul decides he needs to finish first and cannot give up. The classes only serve to increase the mastery of abilities, and he enrolled to find someone important from outside his homeland. Because of the new subject, even if fake, each defeated monster increases experience, and if it's free, he has nothing to worry about. And with the library's reward, he can take missions and obtain hidden skill books. With the right information, the floors are divided by academic year. By winning this prize, he saves a lot of time as long as he can stay in first place. The test will begin soon, and the freshmen are asked to gather in the square. There are boys and girls from all over and all ages scattered around the place, waiting for a chance at a good spot. Someone calls out to Raul, who turns around to see who it is. A red-haired boy asks if he is the Ashen Boy. By the hair, he already knows he's a Randall, so the young master asks who he is. Raul also says he looks more like a child, which makes the redhead say he is as arrogant as the rumors claim. Out of patience, Ashton turns his back, saying he doesn't even know who he is and is too busy. The Randall tries to touch the young lord, but is stopped by his personal guard. Without knowing which family he is from, Jake says it's better for him to stop. The boy demands he get out of his way, but his guard advises him not to cause a scene with so many people watching, which he reluctantly agrees to. He says Ashen children give him the creeps, and after a long string of insults, he threatens to put Raul in his place. The young master doesn't even care, while his royal guard is ready to defend him. The freshmen organize themselves into lines. In the audience, there are several seniors cheering for their families, and Raul manages to spot the big names. The best mag in the kingdom is from Duke Marquis Templeton. The McNeil family has an intermediate axe master, Marquis Clifford, and the Randall Viscounty is on the rise. The three families have students enrolled and great influence inside the academy, making it clear how the place operates, while Jake thinks about the ladies. The knight is also confident his master will take first place and is curious about the faces the others will make. He asks if those are not family members. The blonde wants to deal with the situation, but the boy says he'll settle everything later. Raul checks the exam instructions and the list of freshmen. All those well known in his past life are there, especially Dalton Templeton and James McNeil, who will reach the master level in 10 years, making them not easy to deal with. It is announced that the first test will start soon, and they should head to the small auditorium. Anyway, the boys are just kids, and Raul is confident that the top spot is his this time. They gather in the room for the placement exam. The first test is a written exam. Smartly, Raul didn't need to study for this, as the cafe link has all the information he needs for a fishing method. With the test completed, the second test is the physical strength exam, where they must enter the gymnasium in groups and follow the instructors. As soon as he enters, Raul notices something strange. It's a mana restriction field. The instructor explains the reason, saying it's a place solely for the physical strength test, and asks the students to step forward when their name is called. The device being used is a strength meter, which is definitely a punching machine. The next one is called to take the test. With all this strength, the boy prepares to punch the machine, giving it his all for a good score. Student 202 achieves 1,418, and the next one is called. Raul realizes they record the highest score from 2 attempts, and the measurements seem to range between 1,000 and 1,500, concluding that it's not that high. He observes the guy who has 43 stamina and 50 strength, ranking him among the top 5 in his group. Raul wants to know how good he is. The academy officials are gathered at a large table. They are watching the tests through screens, and so far, the scores are good for them. Being the Kingdom of Knights, the scores are generally high, with the freshmen's quality being greater this year, and they believe the enrollment surge is because they heard about Gray. He says the newcomers under 20 years old are scoring above 1,000, which will surely scare the boys from Leslie Academy. They ask him why he agreed to come to the Reuben Kingdom Academy, and the mage replies that he wanted to personally see how his new magic circle works. Laughing to lighten the mood, he says it makes it seem like he's going to use the students as guinea pigs, but the others are grateful, even more so because he's sponsoring. Adolfo says he is happy he came, especially because of students from warrior families, and another man says that's why everyone is here for one specific boy. Next up is the 13th son of the Randall family. McKinney introduces the boy Caleb and says the Lord himself trained him, given his exceptional talent. The man says it was the boy himself who asked to enroll in the academy, which makes the others anxious to see him in action. Caleb prepares to punch the equipment, hitting it with all his strength and surprising everyone with his score of 3005, which makes everyone notice how exceptional he is, understanding why Viscount Randall favors him so much. They still have a long way to go to catch up to him, but the next one also seems interesting. It's James McNeil, direct grandson of the current Lord Clifford, whom the Chivalry Order wants due to his talent being above the Academy's level. The young man starts his test very quickly. He punches the equipment with all his strength. McNeil strikes twice. The first score is 3,500 and the second is 3,612, surprising everyone by surpassing the average with a new record. It is the highest number ever recorded by a freshman. Gray thinks it's incredible, saying that when the machine was installed, even the best mates barely reached the average, leaving Randall not very pleased. Then they call attention to get ready for the next one. Coming up is Dalton, grandson of a swordmaster, making his first public appearance. The young man takes his test. However, his score is 2,900. Everyone in the room is surprised, but not for the same reason as with the other freshmen. They ask what's wrong with him for having scored lower than the previous ones. He delivered the blow with one hand behind his back. The teachers watch the screen closely, wanting to see Dalton's next move. His second score is 3,008. Gray reveals that he forced him to enroll in the academy, and that's why he doesn't seem very happy. The others are really surprised that Dalton managed that score with a hand behind his back, which doesn't please Randall, who suggests they take a break. But the man reminds the redhead that at least one of the famous families is still missing, and McKinney says they don't need to watch. He says rumors claim the boy only got in by recommendation from the family, and that he is only 15 years old, almost or 19. Randall mentions students who drop out of graduation to seek experience in the academy, which is a pity, and then a laugh startles them. Dylan had been quietly there the whole time. This enrages McKinney, while Gray remembers talking to him, describing him as a well-mannered and persuasive person, different from his appearance. The hair says is an honor, and the vice president smiles, saying it's hard to forget someone with that incredible body and face. Adolfo says he's curious to know the reason for the laugh and asks the young man to tell him. Dylan says it was funny to see all the old men talking, and he doesn't miss the chance to provoke Randall using his own words about it being a pity. The big guy defends his brother, who was accused of coming only for experience, and the redhead shouts that there are no graduates before the age of 20. The two men enter into a heated argument, with Dylan defending his brother to be the first and McKinney wanting to prove otherwise. To be honest, even the blonde is curious to know what Raul intends. Outraged, Randall says that only talking and no action is typical of the Ashtons, and Gray tries to smooth things over to avoid embarrassing the guests. Suddenly, they are surprised by what they see and ask who the boy is. The focus is on young Raul. They say his face seems to be glowing, doubting he's even Dylan's brother, and the big guy says his little brother is the jewel of the family. Besides asking about the family's singles, they also forgive the boy's lack of sword skills. Randall asks for silence from them. And the hare knows that the old man knows about his brother's abilities because of the incident with Gendar. He also wonders if Raul will take it easy, but he wishes that he gives his best because of the commotion in the room. The youngest of the Ashtons walks majestically. Then he positions himself for the attack, giving it everything he's got when he strikes the equipment. It's perfect for those watching the show, but his score is 2,999. Even so, it's impressive for a 15-year-old boy. Everyone prepares for Raul's next strike, while everything is going according to the boy's plan. People in the room hope his new score won't discourage him because of his age. Raul gathers momentum for his strike. Then, with all of his strength, aims at the equipment, and everyone in the room cheers at the spectacle. Dylan is very proud of his little brother. The young master achieved 3,615, exactly 3 points higher than the highest score. He is too smart, really planning everything carefully. Even the other students are surprised by the boy. The instructor then asks Raul to return to his seat. As he walks, the others watch him, still shocked. Ashton sits down and his companions are quite scared of him. At the window, he finds out that the highest score from the first test was 2,820, and that there was no change for the second. He looks for the other test scores, staying attentive and making sure to record all scores, which will be sorted by those who scored above 2,500. Finally, this test ends, and during that time, Raul noticed something. Upon reaching the specialist level, his physical strength increased, and along with Dylan's training, his strength attribute rose to 68, so he had to maintain the same average as the other freshmen. That's why he had to gather information, so he pretended he had given his best. Raul used psychokinesis to reduce the impact when he punched. He also used the game system's calculator to make sure he did it correctly. He doesn't know if he needed to do all this, but the real threat is unknown and he must hide as much as possible. Raul will keep doing this until players start appearing because his powers are something people would find strange. As Crash, he showed his power as a rank 1. As a result, guilds analyzed his abilities and hunted him down. He had to flee several times and eventually lost his life. That's why he is determined not to make the same mistakes, hiding and eliminating the others, now becoming the hunter. The instructor shouts that the first test is almost finished and asks everyone to prepare for the next one. Raul checks his attributes before the test ends, and all are above 58, with his level being 55 going to 56. The next test is the obstacle course, mainly using strength and agility, so he has to control himself. The young master hopes that Dalton and James will do their best this time. It's a blessing to be a descendant of the Duke Marquis Swordmaster, but it comes with a great amount of responsibility. The Duke never forced his sons to learn the way of the sword, but they wanted to maintain the #1 title, while Dalton was forced to be the best. And he became better than most people his age, which stressed him out a lot due to his more rebellious personality, accepting the academy as an escape. Meanwhile, the young swordsman complains about the test because he would rather be sleeping at home and tries to understand why everyone is talking loudly. On the scoreboard, he sees Rawl in first place and James in second, which surprises him. He defeated McNeil every time, but he was the best he faced, and now there seems to be someone even above that. The instructor calls them to move to the location of the next test and asks them to line up. Dalton remains curious about Rawl and tries to remember where he has seen him before. He finally finds the boy and asks if it's really him. Ashton stops, confused, and asks who he is. Dalton introduces himself to him, and Rawl remembers seeing a golden sparkle in his eyes, and although finding the boy handsome, thinks he's not at his level. The young master says if it's nothing, he will take his leave, but the swordsman asks him to wait. It's been a long time since he was rejected, and Dalton doubts the blonde really knows who he is, since people usually talk when they know. This makes the swordsman even more curious. He wonders what kind of expression Rawl will make when he loses to him in the test. The next test begins in an open field. For the young master, it's something simple, since they are going to check how fast he can be running through obstacles. The problem is that they have to run in a full steel armor set, and there are some traps placed along the course. The disqualifications start right away, which scares the freshmen. They were all low-ranked students, but 100 have already failed the test, which Rawl believes has something behind it, and others comment that the vice president changed something in the tests. Some test times are 13 minutes and 22 seconds, another 12 minutes and 52 seconds, which the boy thinks is problematic, and he watches to see if others will be faster. Shortly after, the best record was 9 minutes and 12 seconds, which for Rawl isn't a drastic change. The next group is about to take the test, so Ashton decides to start getting ready while Dalton, drowsy on the ground, asks if it's already time. The swordsman finds it all boring. In the guild chat, Rawl exchanges information, but nothing interesting is reported besides the best score being 7 minutes, and he asks them to keep the group updated. Being number 285, the instructor explains to him about traps and obstacles being illusions, but the damage being real. If the registered damage is greater than the armor can withstand, he will be disqualified. Then number 285 begins his test. The armor is very old as well as heavy and complicated to move, so he understands why so many failed at the beginning. But it's nothing major for him, who became stronger after reaching the specialist level. Obstacle number 1 is the torrent. Rawl thinks about the illusion magic that makes everything so real and wonders how many mana stones they used just for the test. While he jumps, he considers it all a waste. Obstacle number 2 are traps in the forest. Rawl runs, trying not to lose his rhythm, but ends up stepping on a trap. This triggers very sharp arrows flying toward him. He immediately notices them. He also escapes another trap, and yet another one where he uses his sword to defend against daggers, and at that moment, he thinks about checking the others' times. The boy opens his guild chat window while still dealing with the weapons. After finishing, Rawl puts his sword back in place. However, something else is coming toward him, but he manages to handle it well. While James and Dalton are going very fast, likely finishing the tests in about 5 minutes. Caleb is also moving quickly, though not at the same level as the other two, and the young master notices they are relaxed just by the way they are moving. In the end, Rawl asks them to monitor them separately and to send updates about James and Dalton's progress. The young master is surprised by what is ahead of him, a suspension bridge and a hill along the cannons, which will make things annoying for him. But that won't stop him, because Rawl Ashton is there to be the best. The boy runs across the wooden bridge. In his hand, his sword is ready for defense. He needs to maintain this speed, but notices a strong wind. Thus, the bridge starts swaying, making him lose balance. Soon the cannons start firing. Fireballs are flying in all directions. And if he does nothing, Rawl could fall. The boy is ready to defend himself. It would be easier if he used his mana blade, but he can't reveal that yet. What he is doing needs to be enough for his survival, and he manages to escape with only one thing left. The cave part of the course needs to be completed to finish. The traps there will be harder to dodge and therefore more dangerous, but he understands he can't stop there. After all, there's always a way. Sharp arrows are fired. Luckily, James protects himself with his shield. For him, it's becoming so irritating that he wonders what he's even doing there. Having to enter an academy at this age is already a pain, and now he has to deal with these inferiors. He has already won a tournament against 20-year-olds and has experience as a capital guard. For him, this is a waste, as he will soon be a knight. James would never have come if not for direct orders from his lord, and he even remembers the Dalton kids. The redhead also remembers the Ashen boy and finds it all so irritating and fears losing first place to them, trembling at the thought of complete failure. His question is when the cave will end while he sees the light at the end. Whatever it is, he walks toward it. The arrows split into two, and James dodges them, quite irritated. His completion time for the test was 5 minutes and 15 seconds, leaving the others surprised and making him think he's the winner. The redhead is sure he will take the top spot, but everyone points at the screen. He looks at the screen with a mixture of surprise and irritation. Dalton placed first, completing the test in 4 minutes and 58 seconds. This makes him think it's impossible, aware that he couldn't do it, even if the course were in a straight line. As for the swordsman, he only thinks that he's finally warmed up. While James is angry that his plans are ruined, the others are impressed that Dalton isn't even tired. The boy only wants to know where Raul is, leaving the redhead even more shocked and surprised that he wants to know about the Ashen boy. After all, he knows that the swordsman never cared even when dueling against him, which increases his doubts about what he wants with the boy. But he doesn't want to bother with it, and believes the 15-year-old boy, who isn't even a specialist, is incapable of beating his score, and once again they point at the screen. This time it caught James even more by surprise. Raul came in first place, finishing the test in 4 minutes and 55 seconds, with only a 3-point difference from Dalton, and Caleb ended up last. The freshmen wonder how he is doing it. Meanwhile, Ashton is calm, managing to do things just the way he wanted. Angry, James wants to understand what happened since Raul isn't even a specialist. But Dalton is finding everything more and more interesting, realizing that life at the academy won't be as boring as he thought. In the room, the adults are also surprised that the boy Ashton was the first again, which means he will stay at the top. They congratulate Sir Dylan, saying the whole show is amazing, and he shyly thanks them. Their curiosity lies in whether Ashton's county teaches ranger techniques at such a young age, and the man had hoped Raul would be more straightforward than James. Dylan says that his brother is very special in the family, having learned various skills. He had to respond to them, but even he did not expect Raul to pass through that course in that way. James went through the obstacles, destroying everything, just like Dalton with his longsword, both using what their families are known for to get through the course. Raul used the two-handed sword as an Ashton would have, but his extremely precise movements were far above expectations. However, he did not activate a single trap while passing through the cave with movements that would be impossible for anyone other than an experienced rogue or ranger. Dylan also noticed that he did not even use the mana blade, realizing that Raul was hiding that he is a specialist with ranger skills. The hare concludes that they are going to talk with fists because of that lie. Still, he is very proud of his little brother. The second test was completed, and the academy placement exam was finalized. After the long tests were over, Raul's family members congratulated him on his victory, and then he went to the carriage to avoid more attention. In the end, the boy was very tired, having gone through all the trouble to hold back, hoping the others believed it. Everything is fine for now, and he feels he just needs to rest a little. Slowly, he starts to close his eyes. From the darkness, a voice is heard. With the girl in his arms, Ba screams, asking why they did this. Smiling Han Gilju says that he is acting like he lost his family, but tells him to let it go since she was just an orphan. The man says he kindly asked him to join the guild, and if he had listened, nothing would have happened because even being rank 1, he would not have defeated them all. Ba looks irritated, and the leader asks why he is glaring at them for having eliminated just a random NPC, saying the person was nothing awakened something in him because the woman meant everything to him. They met during the main quest, and she had been his guide ever since. Spending over a year protecting the girl, she was basically his family, and he simply lost her to a guild that was irrelevant to the mission. Han keeps laughing and tells him to go ahead since he was already thinking of eliminating him, and he orders his men to do so. The knights attack, surrounding Ba, who is still holding his only family. An energy passes between them. Daggers and any weapons on the battlefield strike the enemies. Ba is almost there in his revenge. With the swords, he uses psychokinesis to form a circle, and they head toward the guild leader, Daesung. This terrifies the man who knows Ba is rank 1 but still thinks it's too overpowered. He complains about the gacha company for only getting crappy skills after spending so much money. Han senses the danger and chaos he caused in his life. The hooded figure is standing, aiming at him. But before delivering the final blow, Ba wants to know why the guild is eliminating the NPCs. He demands an explanation. Ba asks if he is not afraid of the penalties. Eliminating quest NPCs is extremely disadvantageous for players. It causes accounts to be permanently deleted and all related accounts to be banned. The mission continues with new NPCs no matter how many times they are finished, so Ba asks why he risked the penalty. Smiling, the man asks if he really thinks they fear a penalty, and says that only commoners like him care about that because many people are willing to do it as many times as they want. Ba grabs him and demands he answer the question, but Han says he doesn't intend to, since he is about to be eliminated and is not afraid because he used a resurrection potion. This makes the hooded figure furious, as it confirms the rumor that the man is the grandson of one of Korea's biggest companies, and the leader says he will have to kneel. Holding the enemy's head, Ba asks if the person with the most money wins both in real life and in the game, but that doesn't change what he thinks. He then drops the man unconscious on the ground. That day, he swore before the girl he could not protect. The young man cried with the lifeless body of his only family, wishing she would come back. Ba's promise is that he will eliminate him until he gets tired of dying in the game and will eradicate the Daesung Guild from the Connexo world. Raul Ashton's eyes open. This is the first time he dreams of his past life. Something feels strange to him, just like how he couldn't keep the promise he made to that girl, and suddenly something appears in his field of vision. He is puzzled by the icon he has never seen before and wonders if it is related to the notification he just heard. It's a warning of an update that will happen in 1 month with an open dungeon, a portal system, the release of some NPCs for missions, and a new guild system. Raul immediately thinks that this means he will see that guy again soon and intends to protect the girl this time. The only problem is that he can't predict the exact moment of the update, so he doesn't feel prepared enough. He has 1 month and knows that nothing will happen right after the update, but he fears missing the chance and ending up delaying his plan. The young man wants to master the scenarios and gain as much as possible before another player enters, as future decisions depend on the time he has. Raul has a lot to do, especially expanding his guild. He needs to plan everything very carefully overnight. He stayed up all night planning everything and made the most efficient and concrete plan. And he is not the only one thinking about what to do. Silver Zero, the leader of the Imperial Hunting Dogs, starts the meeting. It is reported what happened first, with the king only appearing at the regular meeting, the absence of the Sword Emperor, and the highlight being Freshman McNeil. The redhead tells the order from the base that exactly in 1 month the grand plan will begin, which the others celebrate as everything being a success. But the man demands silence, saying this is only the first step, and asks them not to forget their functions, which are more important at the moment. Silver Zero asks Number 7 if he finished the investigation in Mira, and he replies that it is complete but uncertain because the involved kingdom made it difficult. He says he is sure the Randalls are involved, but the other thinks it is nonsense that the exiles to Mira invaded the camp. Another piece of evidence he uses is that they declared victory, as well as the power armor equipment and tracking spells pointing to that. The other disagrees, but the leader tells them to stop, wanting to know what else there is to report. Several reports that the youngest Ashton showed himself and that he and his group did not appear near the base, only staying in the city, and Silver asks if they were together. With the denial of the families working together, the leader asks to exclude them from this, and the next report is that they saw someone who might be Gray. But the redhead asks to stop the investigation because the important thing at the moment is the grand plan about to start, only wanting to warn the Randalls. He asks Free about the academy since he thought James would stay in first place according to the plan, and the masked man says Raul appeared out of nowhere. Styx, responsible for the Ashtons, says he doesn't know what to say since the boy was useless, but started showing great skills this year. Silver thinks that a 15-year-old boy cannot ruin the plans and that he already had something planned to use him, but may need to change it. He says Gray is more important, and now it's 8's turn to report that a guild has been causing trouble in the underworld, but is almost dealt with. The leader gives the final warning that 1 month ensures there won't be problems and asks them not to lower their guard until then, and for them to remember that a small variable can ruin the entire plan. Finally, the next day begins. For Raul, staying up all night was exhausting, but at least he thinks it won't be a problem in the future, choosing to attend classes 3 days a week with main lessons. As he walks, the students comment about him, impressed that he got first place, being an intelligent, skilled, and handsome boy. But there's no reason for Ashton to care about them since the academy is just a small part of him. He's only there for a few things he needs, and Raul spots the list with the placement exam results for Class S. Besides the ranking, he wants to know if there is anything else. The mission reward is experience and 500 gold coins, which he thinks is very bad. He is curious about the extra reward. Although he wants to know, he understands it won't be much since it was a D-rank mission. In the classroom, while some students seem focused, others seem like they don't even understand why they are there. For Raul, they are as useful as he thought they would be. They are essential, but still just basic. The other students are avoiding him, even though he thought Caleb, Dalton, or James would bother him, but he prefers it to stay that way. The first day wasn't bad at all, and as Ashton prepares to leave, someone calls for him. In the boy's hands are the information about the benefits, and by showing it at the library or training center, he will be registered. He's also informed that Vice President Gray is looking for him, and thus he finds out that the extra reward is to meet the Great Sage. Alfredo is the legendary hero who fought against the Empire, and apparently the boy is going to meet him. He is excited but also worried. As soon as Raul knocks on the door, he receives permission to enter. Politely, Ashton enters the room, unable to hide his look of astonishment. The Great Sage welcomes him. With a smile, the Great Sage asks him to wait while he finishes signing some documents. Raul has never seen him before, but he is exactly like in the videos and photos from other players, a typical noble with an unusual aura around him. He wants to know more, just take a quick look, but he can't see his level or attributes. Gray surprises him by asking if he can see anything. Luckily, the man refers to the documents, acting as if he knows his every move. Nervous, Raul says it's very difficult to find him, but the vice president says he will stay at the academy for a while and asks him to wait a little longer. After all, he has a lot to discuss with Ashton, including about his eyes. This catches Raul off guard, who wants to know who this guy really is. Ashton's doubt is whether Gray truly knows about his eyes or if it was just a guess. He'll find out soon, since the man finally finishes his work. He is making the young master nervous, so Raul plans to be more careful with what he says. The Great Sage steps out to get tea. Soon the man returns and surprises the boy, who thought he would use abilities to make the drink. Adolfo congratulates him for coming in first place with an exciting performance, then says he wanted to see him to ask a few questions. Raul remembers meeting him at the test site and is sure he didn't do anything to attract attention. The doubt is what he is curious about. Because of this, he intends to give basic information and leave quickly. The young master then asks why the great sage is curious about him. Without much ceremony, Gray gets straight to the point and asks if he knows an organization called the Imperial Hunting Dogs. This makes the boy freeze and be left without an answer. 50 years ago, the Connexo continent was in chaos due to the invasion of the Kranan Empire, the four kingdoms on the brink of destruction. In that difficult moment, heroes emerged who risked their lives to stop them and push them back behind the monster mountain. And there was peace for the 50 years that followed, with conflicts between kingdoms being resolved during the fight against the Empire. They prepared for the next possible invasion. Gray built a tower to train talented people and roam the continent. One of the people he was looking for was an alchemist that Raul saved, Nakia. He could have helped her when she was expelled from the association, but couldn't because he was handling other important matters. Having heard about Nakia's forgiveness, he went to Mira. He stayed there to take care of her and witness Raul's and his companion's generosity. He discovered the truth behind the conquest of the Imperial Hunting Dogs, that the Randalls took advantage of Ashen's work. Thus, the man realized the boy gave the credit to another family, avoiding the Empire's attention, and even being so young was preparing for the future. For Gray, he is the perfect man to be the hero of this world, and thus decided to watch him very closely. Now Raul doesn't know why he is there, but intends to stay alert and doesn't even know how to answer about the Imperial Dogs. He knows the man always gives missions related to the Kranan, but he can't mention them since there's no need to get involved yet. The Great Sage says he is being cautious and that if someone else asked about it, he should stay silent because it is too dangerous for him to handle. He says he has been observing him since Mura when he handled the conflicts very well and that the Randalls will have serious difficulties. Raul is surprised, wanting to know how the man has all this information and worries that if the Viscounts find out, he will have problems. But Gray assures him that he will not tell anyone because he made a good choice in staying silent. So Ashton wants to know how much he knows and why he will stay quiet. Drinking his tea, the vice president asks if he knows why the Kranan Empire is dangerous, and the boy replies if it's because of their military power. Although he is right, the man asks him to go further and questions if he thinks their lands and people surpass those of the other kingdoms. Despite the large amount of land, most of it is desolate and their population is almost the same due to the harsh climate. Then the man says that their way of being a threat lies in information because the kingdoms are exposed and know very little about their enemies. The only way to get there is through rifts, and a wall was built near the entrance with armies stationed there to prevent an invasion. But the Empire manages to send spies, gaining an advantage, and if they invade now, they will do so knowing they have a good chance of winning. It happened the same way in Raul's past life, with Kranan using players to start the war and close to victory. He died. Getting straight to the point, Gray says they need more people like him because the youth are their greatest chances of winning. Raul thinks that if he is related to Nakia's growth, he might be useful, thus accelerating his own development and defeating the Empire. Adolfo says it is happening and that Raul must remain discreet and make smart decisions, and the boy promises to do the same. He says it's late and plans to give the boy a gift for having listened to him for so long. Handing Raul a small box, the man says he will need it in the future and asks him to carefully read the instructions later on how to use it. The ring looks very expensive and the boy can feel mana coming from it, so he asks if he is sure he can keep it. But the man insists, saying it is also a reward. Although he feels he did nothing to deserve it, Ashton liked it. The young master thanks him and Gray does the same, saying he hopes the rest of their time at the academy will be very good. Raul was nervous, but in the end, it was better than he expected, now left to understand the gift better. Suddenly, he is startled when he realizes something. Gray's ring allows for perfect body transformation into a designated form, plus the additional effect of summoning the creator once. The boy was happy to receive such an overpowered item, exactly what he needed. There are many limitations because of his position, so he will need to be careful with what he does, as he also wanted an item to hide his identity, which makes the ring perfect for doing so since only a few mages can use polymorph spells because they are 6 circle spells, and besides, it can summon Gray. However, Raul does not intend to worry about it for now. After all, the Great Sage will be very useful, and he is confident he will use the gift wisely. After that, 2 weeks pass. His life at the academy is going very well, and no one is being aggressive because he is keeping quiet. However, Dalton sticks to him all the time, and the swordsman asks if he is free because he found a great arsenal. Raul once again says he is busy and that Dalton can go alone, but the young man begs, saying that if he returns, he will have to train with his instructors. Ashton thought he would have a quiet academic life, but an unexpected variable appeared and started sitting beside him, and began to bother him every day, not seeking any other friends besides him. At least no one else bothers him while the young man is by his side. Meanwhile, Dalton wants to know why he is so busy. He replies that he is going to the library, so the swordsman should find someone else, which causes Dalton to be outraged that he lost and thus failed to stop Raul from using the place. The young master suggests that he read a book to pass the time, but he prefers wielding a sword every day. Finally free from Dalton, the boy goes to the huge library. Despite the benefit, Raul can only go up to the 4th floor, with only royalty and some professors having access to the 5th. Still, the 4th floor is wonderful, and only 50 students can have access to the 3rd. The young master needs to find useful books. Something special flies with its shining wings through the library. The little fairy doesn't find any new student or even a book. She thinks there might be something inside the bags. Seeing the student without much interest, she touches her head, changing her expression with the thought that the girl is always doing her best. For the fairy, it is always good to see them working hard, but it irritates her when someone dares to sleep in the library. For this student, the solution was a smack on the head. The boy, fully awake, is startled by what happened, and he runs away from there thinking there is a ghost. She threatens that if he sleeps again on top of the books, he will have an even bigger surprise, not forgiving anything inside the sacred library. The place is very enchanting. There are more useful skills on the 2nd floor compared to the 1st. Raul finds the student's conversation about what happened strange. The girl talks about the student who ran out after being hit by the ghost, and laughing, the boy says he will be careful. The young master thinks it can't be that, since there is a protection spell cast on the place, so for him, it must just be a story to scare people. The fairy is stressed by so many students bothering her, making her feel truly tired. Suddenly, something unexpected happens. She is surprised because it has only been half a year since she moved. The book can no longer ease her fatigue, and she wonders if she should move to another one once again. But the skill book could keep her there for about 1,000 years, which makes her worried, thinking if she should find one of the same level to stay in. There are only quality books in the library, and she fears not surviving even a year with this being her end. But she cannot let it be like that because she still has a long-term, unfulfilled wish. Suddenly, she feels something special approaching. The fairy senses a strong connection. She turns around looking for where it is coming from and stares at young Raul. To get there faster, she tries to give herself a boost while wishing it is what she needs. Then she jumps toward the books. Raul's search is not going very well. It is quite difficult to find a unique skill book, and unfortunately, he cannot use the one he picked up. The young man at least wishes to find something about psychokinesis, using information given by another user, though he thinks he could have asked more about it. With nothing else to do, he continues searching until he finds one that seems good. It is the book Acrobatic Horsemanship, a rank C combat skill. He notices an artistic touch and art ability before that which made up for it, so he will write everything down in his encyclopedia. Since space is limited naturally, he will have to delete old entries to learn a new one and register unused skills. The boy extends his hand over the encyclopedia, thus collecting everything he wanted. At least everything is going well. After being registered, a skill book becomes normal, and the same happens when any other player succeeds too, so he wants to find as many as possible. With the task done, he goes in search of another. Meanwhile, the fairy is spying on the strange human, finding it suspicious that he picks up several books with similar titles and reads the same parts several times. Also to her, it is very strange that all the books he reads are different from each other. She can feel something special because he can differentiate between them, and in a way it seems beautiful. Anyway, he does not interest her. Humans cannot help her. It should be at least a great sage or an archmage to communicate, who are not being useful either. Her existence is the result of sacrifices, harsh destinies, and coincidences, and it is becoming difficult to keep waiting for help from a human. Even the special books are not good for living inside. She thought she had felt something, but now thinks she might be losing her senses. However, she finds the way Raul is touching the book strange. It seems normal, but the symbol engraved on it does not. She feels as if there is something beneath the cover calling to her. Attentively, she observes what Raul is doing, getting impressed that the power of one book was transferred to another without being absorbed. But she still cannot feel much difference, so she wants to look more closely since it is something she has never seen before. The fairy notices the boy leaving and takes advantage of the moment. She approaches and realizes it is a book she has never tried before, thinking that maybe it is the one she was looking for. Things keep surprising her to the point of leaving her petrified. With her little fairy eyes, she looks closer and even touches it. However, what surprises her is that nothing happens, even though the great skill book and the religious ones let her stay. Persistent, she tries again. Desperate, the fairy wonders why it's not working without noticing what is approaching. Her eyes widen in a mix of fear and surprise. Innocently, Raul asks what she is doing on top of his book. He even becomes curious to know who this girl is. Thinking it might be a ghost or fairy, the young man notices her becoming transparent, seeming about to disappear. Meanwhile, she is surprised and asks how he can see her. Without waiting for an answer, the fairy runs away frightened. Although curious, he doesn't chase her and remembers her interest in the encyclopedia, understanding that she will come back. The important thing now is his search. The acrobatic horsemanship skill was registered and the enhancement efficiency increased by 10.5%. He has around 700 skills registered, which seems pretty messy, and Raul realizes that not even in his past life did anyone collect so much. His encyclopedia is still of rare grade, and he wonders how many books he needs to collect to see his true power when suddenly a voice calls him. Raul turns and finds that fairy again. She came back faster than he expected and curious. She asked about the book. The young man thinks he should have been more aggressive at first and asks if she shouldn't apologize for touching his things and why he should answer her. Although he is rude, the fairy apologizes and asks if he really can hear her, since that is something rare. Landing on the table, she decides to properly introduce herself. Her name is Ravelina Harriet Meridian, a forest fairy who loves harmony and order. Rawl also introduces himself as a freshman student and says that she doesn't seem like a common fairy, and Ravel explains that she is like a ghost, as he called her. Trying to understand the title, he asks if it is like being an inspector, which offends the fairy, who says she is just a fairy between life and death. The boy asks about her interest in the book and if she knows anything about it, to which she replies that it is special among all the other specials. Ravel says she doesn't know what it is about because, unlike the other books, it didn't talk to her, so she begs to take a look. To be honest, Rawl doesn't know much about the encyclopedia either and thinks that maybe she could improve the item for him since there is no risk of the fairy stealing it. Ashton then allows it, as long as she promises to tell him everything she finds out, and grateful, she agrees. He opens the book for Ravel to take a look. The fairy places her tiny hands over the pages and feels a lot of energy flowing through it. What surprises her are the sparks coming out, and she wonders how that is possible. However, the power of the book is so great that it ends up throwing her away. A little dizzy, the fairy wants to know how he really foresaw something like this, and that this book appearing at that moment is against the rules. Worried, Rawl asks if she's okay, but Ravel seems quite scared. She asks the young master where he found the encyclopedia, and he asks her to calm down since she was the one supposed to tell him about the item. The ghost of the library reveals that the book contains the power of the ancient creator god who is said to have disappeared. This is something that surprises the youngest son of the count. He asks if the power really exists in this book, but it ends up not being very interesting to him since he doesn't know about the god, and Ravel gets angry that he isn't amazed by the divine work. Rawl says she is right because he doesn't care about that part, and the fairy tells more about the book. Even though she doesn't understand much, she knows it is forbidden and lost its power. He asks how to reveal its true form, but the fairy says there is no way to know, as the stubborn book refuses to talk to her. When called useless, Ravel complains that he expects her to find out everything in such a short time and asks him to let her enter the encyclopedia. With her request, Rawl realizes she tried to sneak in, and despite the advantages, he doesn't want to let a stranger do that for free. Frightened, she asks why he is looking at her like that, and he says he doesn't need her since he can solve the problem on his own. Since it is getting late, the young master says he is going to leave. Ravel begs him to listen to her, but he claims he is tired and says he will come back later to talk, making it clear that he doesn't even know if he really will return. The fairy pleads for forgiveness for irritating him and explains that it has been a long time since she last talked to a human. Being more aggressive, he insists that he is very busy, and she tries to promise to be useful, saying that the book is very important. That is enough for the boy to start a good negotiation. The fairy starts crying desperately and asks why he doesn't trust her. Trying to resolve the situation, he says that's not it, but Ravel only cries even more. Rawl apologizes and calmer, she accepts it. However, he says he still cannot let her enter the book because it is very important to him, and so he needs to know her story first before deciding. The fairy agrees to tell her long story because she trusts him. A long time ago, there was a great war throughout Connexo that involved various races like gods, demons, and even extraterrestrial entities. And this period of chaos brought the continent to the brink of destruction. The forest fairies were almost extinct and tried to evacuate her, the last hair, into a book as a last resort. For many reasons, her spirit became trapped while her species disappeared inside a dimensional crack. Sometime later, she slept for a long time. Upon waking, she moved to another book, and with each awakening, she lost part of her memory, but she knows she has some kind of duty. Ravel says she needs to find her species scattered across the world because she believes there are others alive besides her, but she cannot leave the place and is running out of books. She says the encyclopedia has the same scent as the first one that sheltered her and could be better, so she begs Rawl to let her in. That is enough for the boy to allow her entry, but he explains that she will be the librarian of the book and will be bound to it. The fairy accepts as long as she can enter, but first, she wants to know what he intends to do with the object, and Rawl responds that it is to protect himself and his homeland, and says that it may mean nothing to her, but it means everything to him. For Ravel, that is a great reason. The fairy becomes even more excited. However, she says she won't be able to help him at first since she needs some time to get used to it. She explains that she will sleep for at least 1 month, but the encyclopedia will still work normally, and Rawl tells her not to rush, wishing her a good rest. Ravel thanks him, saying she will help as much as possible. The little girl lays down on the book for her long rest, and that's how Rawl got himself a pet fairy. Time passed quickly after he met Ravel, and now there's only 1 week left until the update. Rawl still has a lot to prepare but is running out of time, and the boy looks terrible. However, Dylan thinks he looks great and says that Rawl was right, asking his brother how he knew. Was it some prophecy? The boy asks what the prophet said. The big guy says it was quite strange, explaining that in 1 week the missing things would return and it would be necessary to open the door and harvest the fruit. For the younger one, the prophecy is very vague, but he can't just ignore it. So he asks how the sanctuary reacted, and Dylan replies that they just went to prepare. Raul wants to know about the nobles, which makes his older brother laugh because they took it as a joke, and he would have done the same if it weren't for Raul and the precedents, which are not few given that the Sacred Empire is an alliance of a small city-state with other medium cities, governed by the Pope. The place holds the imperial title due to religious influence, designated to be an impenetrable domain, and they announce many prophecies. Raul shares his concern that it might be too late if something happens, but Dylan says he has already informed the other families how to react. Excited, the elder asks him to stop worrying and show his strange skills while they work together. The Ashtons never forget something they are interested in, so he took Raul's words about the update seriously, claiming it was a prophecy. But ever since Dylan discovered his psychokinesis, he has been nagging Raul to show it off. The brothers are at the training field. The young master is training with his new sword. Dylan yells about the warning for him to stop relying on abilities and focus on physical growth, but his brother can't get used to it. Raul only started training because Dylan kept insisting nonstop, but his body and psychokinesis evolved and his muscles grew. Meanwhile, his brother only has a single focus, which is physical strength, but despite that, he has many weaknesses in combat skills. He needs to become strong because the enemies won't be easy. The boy understands that Dylan knows the difference between them in each duel, soon realizing there is no way to surpass him without finding an appropriate skill. His plan is also to make the people around him stronger, and so the day passes. Raul is almost done with the tasks he needs to finish before the update, but what bothers him is how people are acting normal even knowing about the prophecy. No lord will prepare for things that haven't happened yet, and to his misfortune, he will need a lot of help from the kingdom. There will be moments when a large number of troops will be necessary, so they need to be preserved and to grow in preparation. Even being the Count's son and knowing the future, he is only 15 years old, having limits on what he can do. So he chose to focus on what he can do, which is to attend classes and research skill books in the library. Raul even visited 3 other starter cities when he didn't have classes: Zusik, Bryant, Kessin, and Mira, all belonging to the Reuben Kingdom. Using the letter of recommendation he got in Mira, he met the other mayors who accepted investments in the cities. He started large-scale engineering projects and built branches of the Pioneer Guild, costing $3.5 million, intending to finish before the players arrive. He also posted a recruitment notice for mercenaries of rank C or higher in groups of up to 10 members. In the contract, they receive double pay for the first month and are offered a chance to join the guild or become knight apprentices if they show merit. With many candidates, Raul managed to recruit 50 rank B mercenaries to be swordsmen or take key positions and 950 rank C trained soldiers. He spent 30,000 coins hiring all of them, and it will cost him even more to maintain them. But the young master believes it will be worth it. After all, you won't have to worry if a high-level battle happens, while others think it's crazy even saying nothing might happen. Raul asks his knight if he called the guild members, and Philip says they were divided into 10 groups, finished training, and that he also summoned the common knights. Ashton asks him not to let his guard down and to remember the mission they will have tonight. 6 knight apprentices were promoted to common knights, 9 common knights became regular guild members, and a few others became affiliates. Now, feeling everything is complete, they will carry out their first public action as Pioneer Knights. Raul goes to check the group's attributes. He chose talents of potential rank B or higher, and yet they are better than he expected, sparking his curiosity to see how strong they will become. Thus, the young master did everything he could to prepare for the update. Now he hopes everything goes as planned with just a few hours left until it happens. Silver Zero demands the report. The royal family has taken no action besides increasing patrols, and Templeton is in a similar position. The same goes for the McNails. The leader asks the 6th if the Ashtons are usually religious, which is denied. Despite their good relationship with the sanctuary, they don't follow it, having been preparing before the prophecy, making him believe they have another source. Silver now wants to know about the great sage. However, there is nothing special about him. He is only focused on the academy. Then he asks the 8th about infiltrating the mercenary squad, but there was a failure, which shocks the 5th, who remembers they were looking for 1,000 men and even so their agent couldn't get in. Although they passed the preliminary test, they failed the main one, which makes them believe Raul has some kind of special ability. The information makes the leader analyze carefully, but they have nothing to worry about as they believe the nobles cannot stop the grand plan. Silver asks them to just keep the boy under surveillance for now and asks about their agents, and the response is that they are all in position. The leader says the grand plan is about to begin. The day when they will eliminate all the nobles is approaching, so they must stay focused. And everyone salutes for the emperor while the redhead thinks about Raul action. Even though it is night, the city is bustling. Pointing, the little boy asks his mother what that is. She looks at the sky and sees several lights. The woman also wonders what those things are, finding it strange to see so many meteors. Suddenly, everyone starts screaming as they feel an earthquake that leaves them desperate. The mother grabs her son to protect him. Afraid, he closes his eyes, letting a tear slip out. Still, the brave little boy opens his eyes. A portal appears before them. The inhabitants are frightened, trying to understand what it is. First, a hand appears. Then hideous monsters wielding weapons come out of the portal, ready to destroy everything. But they do not succeed when a knight steps in front of the mother and son, cutting down everything in his path. Jake remains serious even before such terrible monsters. The place is dangerous, and he asks everyone to flee carefully, while the woman runs, thanking him for saving her life. The portal was found at the outer wall, Area 4, Section B32, and they are using the defense mechanisms. Jake asks to evacuate the civilians and to keep their guards up. Another portal is found at the outer wall 3, Area F, Section 21. Although some monsters came out, there was no damage to the civilians. At the outer wall 1, Area Ennoble Section 3, one also appeared. Philip reports that he will control the location and hand it over to the guards. Raul asks them to keep reporting. Reinforcements are requested, and he sends everyone from Section 14 to Section 32. Furthermore, more groups of goblins appear in other areas. Officially, the update has begun as planned. The young master requests the presence of his butler. He asks Bernard to decide who to send from the squad to each section. Even knowing what was about to happen, Raul did not expect it to be everywhere. They prepare as much as possible, but he feels it is not enough. They did not have enough information about this mission. Only that the kingdom was severely damaged in the year 521 due to the appearance of portals, without knowing the number, location, or rank. Raul wished he could clear the portals on his own, but he is not alone and needs to minimize civilian damage by using his guild's strength. The boy knows that if he knew the portal ranks, he could position his troops more efficiently. Something appears on his screen that catches his attention. It is a mission to clear as many portals as possible in 30 days with a special reward, and he has the information that the portals regenerate at midnight. The last detail worries the boy. Thus, he wonders if everything was inevitable and he had suspicions about it. Connection can stop any move that might affect the scenario, possibly adding a special mission condition, usually sudden or chained. For him, it doesn't matter how many portals he has to destroy. In the end, it won't be easy, but they can't give up yet. There is a way to reduce the damage. Through the guild chat, they inform that at the outer wall 2, Area C, Section 17, the Golden Portal Master is found. Nothing is happening at the moment, but the strength is growing more powerful. Raul warns them not to attack because the portal can suck everything in and asks them to be careful, placing the area under surveillance with Rank B mercenaries. Philip understands his master's orders. Finally, a Rank D appears. Therefore, the young Count decides he can no longer just stay in command. He must deal with it personally. Josh is a Rank C mercenary, 21 years old, from a small farm, having worked hard to climb to where he is. Knowing that a noble was looking for mercenaries with a chance to become knights, he accepted. A comfortable house was also offered, and a meal so incredible that he had never eaten anything like it before. Thus, he thought he could just enjoy a normal life, attending to whatever the noble wanted. However, Josh was not expecting something like this. Huge rats come out of the portal to attack. The mercenary prepares for what is to come, and with his blade, he slices them as if they were cheese. Even after eliminating those monsters, more begin to appear. Josh realizes he might end up exhausted before he can finish them all. A muscular rat is the next creature to come out. What was already difficult worsens with the big one. Even with effort, the mercenary can no longer push them back. Thus, he must bet everything on this tactic. Josh understands that he must eliminate the big one first to serve as a warning and scare the smaller ones. The young man is about to make his sacrifice until he notices something. The fallen blades emit a blue light and begin to levitate. Then all the monstrous rats are struck. It is Raul Ashton in action. The boy is so fast cutting them down that he looks like a yellow lightning bolt. Josh watches the majestic landing of the young master. Ashton asks if he interrupted anything while wielding his sword soaked with the monster's vital fluid. He asks if the young man is part of the Pioneer Guild, and Josh confirms, introducing himself as a Rank C mercenary. Raul scolds him, saying that although he likes the boy's ambition, that was risky because rat men do not scare easily. He explains that Rank D portals are too difficult for the redhead and asks him to join them for now. Not knowing, Josh asks who he is. Jake appears, saying that even though he is a rookie, that is no excuse not to recognize his master's face. The knight introduces Raul Ashton, master of the Pioneer Guild. This leaves the mercenary impressed with the information. Jake asks if he thought it would be easy just because the group was created by the Count's son, and if that's the case, he came to the wrong place. He continues by saying that the guild is only for the highly qualified, asking him to stay alert and follow them. As they march, Raul orders them to attack. What he has formed is only for those who are highly qualified, and Josh seems to understand that. The mercenary then hurries to catch up with them. Fire comes out of the portal as if bringing the underworld into the connection. Rat men wield their swords while searching for victims. Suddenly something catches the attention of one of them, but it is too late and his end is already in Raul's destiny. A yellow lightning bolt passes through them, cutting as if they were nothing. This alerts the monster, who screams. There are a lot of them, just as Raul expected, and making it truly necessary for him to come personally. He does not have enough time to clear all the portals, so he must act as quickly as possible. Jake talks about the several entrances and asks if their base is nearby, which the boy believes might be, and he asks to send scouts to search. The young master also requests that they prioritize rescuing the civilians. Josh, who passed by him, is about to face more creatures. Wanting to continue proving his worth, he prepares for what is to come and eliminates the giant muscular rodents. The redhead slices the monsters like cheese, not forgetting to eliminate any that cross his path. Jake, who watches alongside his master, comments that the boy is special. Raul finds his sword skills brutal but realizes he has good senses. After finishing his cleanup, Josh does not forget to give a thumbs up. Ashton knows he will get much better if he learns to use mana. A scout appears informing them that they found the Ratmen's base behind the forest. However, they did not see any civilians there. The place is quite large, but without many monsters. Jake says they made sure there were no inhabitants near the portal, so there should not be many people around. Still, to be sure, Raul asks them to search everywhere because they cannot afford to lose anyone. He says clearing the portal is necessary, but they must prioritize the rescue of civilians. The young master also asks Josh to go with him to the base. It will be a long night, and he shouts for the knights to prepare themselves. Morning arrives, bringing clarity to the destruction that happened in the city with some cracks in the buildings. Dylan says his brother seems very tired after just one night. He suggests that they need to train more together, but Raul says it is not the right time for jokes, wanting to know what happened there. The big guy does not understand the concern since everyone was well prepared. Still serious, Raul asks how many portals appeared at home. The hare reports that there were about 100 with only 10 being rank D, so it was easy. But for Raul, this was worse than he imagined, while his older brother just says he thought it was not that much. The youngest wants to go help, but Dylan says they have already cleared all of them. This catches the young master by surprise. The elder says it took half a day and that even their father managed to stretch a bit. Trevor, the High Master of the Golden Bears. Together with Commander Ernest, they were so excited that it seemed like they were at some kind of festival. Dylan reports that they were so bored with ordinary life. This makes the young master let out a humorless laugh. The hare says that seeing all those old men running around excited was certainly an interesting sight, and Raul remembers that his family is not normal. The boy says he understands that everything ended safely, but that it was careless, since he had warned them to leave the rank D portals alone because they are dangerous. Dylan asks why he should do that if it meant waiting for him to come and solve everything with his mysterious powers. He says the county is powerful and that their father and they are not so weak, so the boys should not worry. The hare also says that they are always prepared for an enemy and that the number of portals does not matter. Still in his speech, he makes it clear that the Ashtons are not weak and therefore do not need his knight's help. Dylan says that a few hundred portals are easy for them to handle, and at that moment, the boy's eyes begin to droop. Realizing this, the big guy shouts his little brother's name. He tells him not to worry about the house, to do whatever he wants, because he and their father will always cover for Raul. And the youngest son of the count seems satisfied with his older brother's long speech. Raul says that he is right and that he was very arrogant to worry, leaving Dylan satisfied, who says he is still nowhere near being a big guy in front of him. The elder remembers something he needs to tell him and asks why some portals did not disappear after being cleared. This information is worrisome for him. At the meeting, it is also a surprise for the guild. Raul tells them about the rank E and D portals at his home not disappearing. Although there wasn't much damage, he says what worried him most has already happened. Jake asks if it's a big problem and says they can keep an eye on it, but there is a limit to that. Philip says that if they put more men on surveillance, the defense squad will be reduced, making it clear they need to solve this as soon as possible. Raul wants to find out why the portals are not disappearing and see if there is any other way. Finally, Bernard speaks, asking if they should prepare the men, but the young master says it will only be him and a few from the elite. Philip, who will be going with him, asks if that isn't too few, and the boy says that the retirees in his house are going crazy, so they can't just stand by. He also says they might find civilians, so he asks to prepare 10 men to patrol the portal. Jake says this reminds him of the old days and asks if they should bring snacks for the trip, but Pierce reminds him it's only been 2 months since the guild was founded. The archer says this isn't a picnic and they shouldn't let their guard down, which annoys the blonde who was just making a joke. The portal's light is what illuminates the night. Monsters of all kinds are coming out of it. Raul asks if anyone is already tired. His loyal knight Jake responds that he's not even warmed up yet. The boy says there is no time to waste, so they need to move quickly. Goblins and rat men work together to spread chaos in the battle, but Raul's cuts through them are very quick and clean. Philip also eliminates them easily, and Jake enjoys clearing the monsters out of his way. He asks if that's all because he is getting very bored. Suddenly, a goblin tries to attack him from behind, but ends up taking an arrow right in the middle of its chest. The monster falls to the ground, leaving the blonde confused about what happened. With his bow, Pierce says he doesn't need to thank him. This enrages Jake, who says he didn't need his help since he was doing just fine alone, but the archer just finds it ironic. The blonde wants to bet on who kills more monsters, but Philip reminds them they are not there to play. Meanwhile, Raul is surprised that this is all there is since nothing special is happening except for the twisted terrain. Young Josh appears for a report. He says the terrain is a little problematic, but there was nothing out of the ordinary, and it also seems there are no civilians. Raul thinks that they are made in such a way that only players can approach, and he expected that. A portal or dungeon could easily be cleared by NPCs because they are stronger than players. But the players wouldn't like that happening, so there are strong restrictions. NPCs are not allowed to enter the portal guardian's room nor the dungeon boss's rooms. Even being strong, they cannot clear the portal. That's why Raul needs to come up with some plan. A hidden mission appears to eliminate the portal guardian, but the young master has no time to waste. He asks everyone if they also saw the notification. Philip wants to know if they need to find the portal guardian personally since he believed there wasn't one among those they fought. Then Josh asks if maybe it could be the one he is pointing at. Just the creature's step makes everything tremble. The corrupted dark goblin, much bigger and more powerful than the ones they faced, illuminated by a specter, is the portal guardian with rank E. Seeing the monster coming toward them, Philip states the obvious that it must be the guardian of the place. With a smile, Jake asks if it came to them on its own, saying that it's definitely worth its size. Wanting to show courage, Josh says to leave the monster to him, which is denied. It is Raul who will deal with it alone, and asks everyone to move away. Seeing his powerful aura, the redhead quickly falls back. Even Jake asks what is wrong with the young master, but Philip doesn't find it strange and defends that he always leads the battles. The reason is because there is no reward for NPCs, and Raul also does not expect much from a ranky portal. The size difference between the young master and the boss is gigantic. He wants to see if the portal will stay open even if he eliminates the guardian personally. With a terrifying scream, the goblin charges at him. Raul remains in the same place but stays on defense. With his sword, he prevents the monster's weapon from hitting him. His hands are steady. Then Raul pushes the goblin's heavy weapon away. This is the moment he takes advantage to strike, making a cut in the monster and causing its vital fluid to spread through the air. His mates comment on how the guardian is nothing to him. Even while impressed, Josh thinks Raul is crazy for stopping the heavy attack and creating an opening at the same time. This leaves him amazed at how talented the guild master is, seeing the boy step on the monster as if it were nothing. Raul now knows how rank E guardians are, but only thinks they are difficult opponents for mercenaries without talent. He believes the portal should disappear since the leader was defeated, and soon a message appears. However, it is an error alert because it is a scenario portal, meaning it will close and reopen at midnight. With an orb in his hand, the boy explains that it is the rare core mineral, the heart of power armor, found only in dungeon portals. He confirms it came from the goblin and asks them to collect as many as they can to build a power armor factory. Jake asks if the thing is super valuable, leading to a scolding from Pierce, who asks if the blonde wasn't listening. Raul's concern is that even after defeating the goblin, the portal didn't disappear, and he knows he can't handle the scenario. But either way, he would continue with it, even with the portals endlessly respawning, hoping to grow stronger. The young master says he must now clear the ranky portals that appeared in the capital and warns that there will be no rest, and everyone must stay awake. He says they need more mercenaries to join and asks Josh if he can come with them, leaving the boy a bit scared. Raul explains that he stole his chance to shine, so he wants to see him in action. Excited, the mercenary confirms his presence, and finally, everyone is ready to fight all day long. The portal is golden and its flames are eternal. Raul is the first to pass through, trying to deduce where he was transported. He wonders if it's just an ordinary cave and realizes it would be completely dark without the portal. The boy wasn't expecting this, but in the end it's a good thing he brought something for the problem. Then his knights also enter the dungeon and Jake asks where they are. Raul just asks them to stay close to the portal because it's dangerous. With his magic lantern, he tells them to investigate the area. The blonde knight is impressed by the item for being very rare, and even Philip confesses it's the first time he's seen one. Raul says to look around and asks them not to spread out, and in case of a fight, they must stay together. To Josh, he says that his first mission is to take care of the lantern, leaving the boy scared because it is such a precious item. The young master explains that he is giving it to him because he trusts him and asks him to do his best since he's the guild's rookie. His words leave the mercenary in shock. Realizing he is now part of it, the redhead says he will protect the lantern with his life. But what Raul thinks is that he is lucky, though Josh cannot know that. The young master knows the boy will soon become a rank as mercenary and be hailed as a possible candidate for Mercenary King. Back to business, the boy asks how things are going, and the archer reports seeing multiple movements and is sure they are exuding a hostile aura. Suddenly, Pierce notices something. He quickly fires an arrow. The others can't see anything due to the darkness. Desperately, Jake asks if he hit anything, and Pierce explains that he can do it even with his eyes closed. With his powerful perception eyes, Pierce says they are all being surrounded. The creatures that were quiet on the ceiling start to stir. Raul asks them to be careful with the giant bats that attack wherever they see light, which leaves Josh worried since he's the one holding the magic lantern. The creatures go after him. The young master's order is for him to drop the item, but the redhead is ready for a fight, finding it absurd that they would try to challenge the rookie. With unbelievable fury, the mercenary attacks all those surrounding him. He doesn't want to let any of them escape. Jake comments to his master that the redhead has gone crazy for being way too motivated, but Raul is enjoying it and says to call it an admission mission. Josh asks if they're just going to watch, but his companions prefer that the rookie deal with the problem on his own. The knights walk alongside their young master through the cave. Jake says they are deep inside and so far have seen nothing and asks if the cave only has bats, and Philip tells him not to lower his guard. He says that the young master is vigilant, so the blonde should be as well. Josh, who is behind Raul, seems curious. The redhead then asks the knight how strong their leader is. Philip says it depends on his definition of strength, but that the young master is getting stronger every day and lacks nothing as a member of the Ashton family. But he surprises him by saying that judging by sword skill, the boy should be weaker than Jake. The knight says that although the blonde looks like an idiot, his sword skills are incredible. While they talk, something catches Raul's attention. Philip also notices there is something ahead. They are armored scorpions, level 45, rank D, with acid venom and steel armor. Jake smiles despite thinking the creatures are horrible, and Philip asks them to be careful because there are many of them. Raul knows that bats cannot be the main enemies. These creatures only appear in portals, which is why the knights don't know them. He says that if it's a mission, they need to complete it, and asks them to stay alert not to be hit by the venomous stingers. With a confident smile, the young master suggests they get started. The boy knows it is an elimination mission, and that you must clear it, not destroy the portal. But he says they can think about that after dealing with the monsters. With his sword, Raul is ready to eliminate them all. The powerful steel armors of the creatures have a slight shine as they also launch their attack. The first one appears before the young master is cut down mercilessly. Philip and Jake also destroy the giant scorpions, taking care not to get stung. 3 of the monsters team up for a joint attack. Josh holds his sword while still keeping the magic lantern safe with him. He asks why the damn bugs are chasing him and doesn't even notice an enemy behind him. The scorpions prepare to strike him with their stingers. This leaves the redhead in disbelief at what is about to happen. Even so, he tries to defend himself. However, his concern is realizing he won't be able to dodge it. But before the stingers could hit him, swords strike the creatures first. Josh is startled on understanding why the swords are floating. It's just Raul using his psychokinesis with several swords surrounding him, forming an aura, and he asks him if protecting the lantern and fighting at the same time is difficult. He also says he feels like he's stealing his chance to shine again but wants to focus on protecting the item there. With his powerful ability, Raul sends all the swords toward the scorpions. Jake says their young master handled most of the monsters but thought he could stretch a little this time. Josh watches him and thinks he can't be real. Even though they said the boy is 15 years old, to him he is not just a noble pretending to be a knight, but truly the master he will serve. Raul hits the 50th scorpion, reaching the minimum condition to complete the portal. He tells his companions to go deeper, and Jake finds it strange, saying he thought the mission was already over. But the young master says that since they are there, they need to make sure, after all, a rank D portal is dangerous if left incomplete. The knight replies that he thought they would finally get out of this cave, and Philip asks him to stop complaining. Even after meeting the minimum condition, the hidden mission to destroy the portal has not appeared, and Raul understands they need to find the Guardian. He knows it is dangerous to leave it alone and necessary to find it, even if it takes time. Pierce calls him using his ability, and the young master asks if he found anything. The archer found the end of the cave. However, he says it would be best if the master came to see it personally. There is a circular arena in the middle of a cave, and this makes them think how strange the portal is. Jake says he believes that the one in the middle is the Guardian, and Raul believes it probably is. However, the doubt is why it is not moving, and they believe it is as if it is waiting for them. The creature is the Portal Guardian, rank D, Champion Scorpion, level 64. The monster has a terrible smile while staring at them. Raul says that it is inviting them, so they should accept. The young master descends into the arena even with Jake's shout. He feels bad for them, but he cannot back down. Raul runs to the arena to reach the Guardian. What he intends to do is not just for the reward. He tells the Guardian that it made him wait, so he asks it to fight with everything it has. And the creature is ready to meet his request. With a sadistic smile, the King of Scorpions attacks. And with his sword, Raul defends himself. The monster prepares its stinger for an attack. But Raul is faster and jumps, dodging being stung. This is the moment he takes advantage to strike the creature with his sword, but it's not as he expected. After all, the scorpion is also good at defense. Its counterattack throws Raul a few centimeters away. The two stare at each other with fierce eyes, ready to eliminate one another. The monster continues to maintain its defense against the attacks, and Raul studies its movements while executing strikes with his sword. The scorpion charges, ready for another attack. Philip, who is watching the fight, says that the monster is doing very well against the young master, and Jake says that rank D portal guardians really aren't easy. Worried, Josh asks if they shouldn't help since Raul seems to be struggling, but the blonde responds that the boy has a very clear advantage. He explains that the master uses a sword, while the guardian uses a sword, claws, and a tail, meaning the boy is quite relaxed. He says the young master also seems to be enjoying this fight a lot, It has been a long time since Raul felt like this, finally escaping all the boring responsibilities and focusing solely on this fight. However, he knows he cannot enjoy it forever. The young master is busy at the moment, so he will advance to the next phase. He tells the monster that he really had fun fighting, but unfortunately does not have much time. Thus, Raul declares that it's time to end this. And the monster gives a beautiful smile, showing all its teeth. A scorpion's sword lights up, ready to deliver an attack. Then Raul notices something wrong. Green liquids are fired in his direction. For the first time, this worries the young master, but at least he manages to dodge before getting caught in the attack. The green liquid falls to the ground. Then it starts melting all the soil. Raul is surprised that the monster can shoot venom. Thus, he realizes he must be careful with that too. The champion scorpion tries an attack with its sword, and the boy defends with his own. The clash between the two blades causes a great explosion of light. It is so strong that the knights watching the fight are affected. Pierce says the monster can use a mana blade, something quite unexpected, and Josh asks if they are really sure they shouldn't help him. But Jake asks him not to exaggerate and questions if he is seriously thinking of interfering with the master's fight. Even Philip agrees it would be a distraction. Thus he says they should just trust him. While fighting, Raul thinks about how he forgot he lived for this. The days when he lived just to fight and forgot the emotion of a situation that could bring his end and the intensity of combat. This time he will use all he can from his time as Crash, the supreme solo player. Raul knows this guy is not easy at all, having a mana blade and ranged attacks. He has high strength and agility, but his movements are simple and very large. But the young master can work with that. Pointing his sword, he runs toward the great scorpion. He wonders what the monster will use first this time, the sword, claw, or tail. With its terrible smile, the monster opens its sharp claws. Raul's eyes are attentive, noticing its next move. The only thing the creature manages to attack is a rock, as Raul has dodged it, which doesn't make the scorpion happy at all. Raul runs to attack his opponent once again. He then gives a great leap while his blade shines with mana. Thus, the champion scorpion's tail is cut off. This makes the creature scream. But Raul doesn't stop there and continues fighting. He makes more cuts into the giant and muscular monster. The young master says it was very good to have a nostalgic trip through him and bids him farewell. Everyone is impressed, and Jake asks if the master just got stronger. Philip says it hasn't been long since he reached the specialist stage. The knight also says it's only a matter of time until he surpasses his own sword skill level, leaving the blonde worried. Jake then shouts to Raul that they should go to the next portal and that the guardian there is his, and the boy just wants to know what's wrong with his knight. Mission complete, sword skill has reached intermediate level 4 and the class has changed to knight. He tells his men that it took a while and apologizes, saying it must have been boring just watching. Excited, Josh denies it, saying it was incredible and that the fight simply purified his eyes. Philip congratulates him on the good work and asks what they will do about the other portal, and since they are behind schedule, Raul says they will head there right away. He repeats that the day will be long and asks them to get ready, which leaves Jake very excited for the fun he wanted. They completed the portals without resting. After 7 hours of doing it, they ended up completing 4 D-rank portals. Mercenary units were sent to the E-rank ones under Bernard's command. They finished all the missions safely, completing the portals in Turium. There were approximately 500 deaths on the first day, and about 700 people were rescued. Most people believe that it's all over, but Raul knows this is just a small battle before the real war. 2 young men comment about the portal, and one of them says he saw orcs coming out of it and that most were dragged back into it. At the bar, the conversation continues with the bartender saying that's why he saw so many mercenaries and knights, and the man says they were prepared. Ladies comment that the actions were from the prestigious Ashton County and that the youngest son is the one in command. One of them asks what the youngest son's name is, and another says it. The sun shines on the Randall County mansion. The news also reaches them that portals are being neutralized in the capital Turium. The man trembles with rage, repeating the phrase that the prestigious warrior family from Ashton County has returned. The headline also says, "Chosen by the citizens, the man of the moment who is Raul Ashton." He crumples the newspaper and continues reading about the Great Leap possibly being a sign that they will start getting involved in politics. The man squeezes the newspaper between his hands. He says it's absurd and that everything they prepared was destroyed in a week, asking Brian if that makes any sense. The son lowers his head to his father and says he doesn't need to worry, but that only makes the older man's fury grow stronger. A scarlet aura coming from the father hits Brian. He falls to the ground, scared. Brian struggles, trying to crawl. The man says he had 30 children by the age of 60, and even so, they are all useless. On the other hand, the Ashton children are what make him furious. The chandelier on the ceiling swings, hit by the dark aura, but slowly it stops, leaving only sparks on the object. Ryan is still scared by what happened, and Count Randall says he can't even withstand that much pressure and asks how he could be called a specialist knight. The man then asks him to report everything that happened after he started training in seclusion for a month. His son then says that about 2 weeks ago, an official document was sent by the sanctuary. Hudson, full of fury, reads the report about there being 73 portals with 40 concluded in a week, but that the number keeps increasing. Around 3,200 civilians disappeared or died, along with 15 knights and about 1,300 troops due to fear of entering the portals. The report says that for now, the portals have been blocked and surveillance has been set up around them. Frightened, Brian calls for his father. The room is very silent. Then Brian is violently thrown. He falls hard onto the ground, and he begs his father. Hudson tells him to get out of his sight because there is no place for him among the Randalls and tells him not to step foot on the territory until called. The Count says that if he sees him again, he won't care that he is his son and will eliminate him, and asks him to bring the third son when leaving. Brian left the place with help due to his father's lethal blow. Meanwhile, Count Randall is irritated with the Ashtons, back at the Royal Academy. The maids are euphoric, asking if it's the young master of Ashton County. One of them says he led his knights and made a great contribution, and like them, the students comment on the boy's achievements. But among others, it causes anger, with some even accusing Rawl of doing nothing and that it was all thanks to his family. Another says that when his family's reinforcements arrive, he will show everyone that he is better than Rawl. All of this irritates Rawl, who finds it annoying that everyone is looking at him like he's some animal at the zoo and asks why they don't come talk to him. Dalton surprises him by saying he became a celebrity in just 1 week. The swordsman says he did very well and asks the young master if he knows the whole capital is talking about him. But Rawl doesn't want to know. This surprises Templeton, and he asks if the rumor that he is the true heir of Ashton County is true. Even the young master finds this question strange. But Dalton continues telling the rumor that it's odd for the family to entrust so many troops to a son who isn't the heir, but Rawl says he isn't interested. The young master says that to clarify, he recruited his own order of knights without support from his family. This makes Dalton find it strange, and he asks more about it, and Rawl responds that he had some money. The swordsman says he understands and that maybe he'll visit a portal with him someday. Being stared at by the young master, he asks why, and Rawl smiles, realizing he has already achieved at least one thing he wanted. His admission to the academy may have seemed like an excuse to leave home, but actually has another goal. First, to find skill books in the library and hidden things within the academy. Although the list of new students changed because of Gray's appearance, candidates had already been selected according to information from Link Cafe. The boy Dalton is one of them. To be honest, for Rawl, the strongest person in this kingdom is the Master, Marcus D. Templeton. In the world of connection, where almost no contact can be made with high-rank noble NPCs, it was a chance to meet his grandson. Not everyone is allowed to enter the portal, requiring an official permit or a troop, making it impossible for Dalton. Even though he is a specialist, he never confirmed his abilities, so Rawl believes he is desperate for a chance at real battle experience. The young master smiles at this. He asks if he wants to go together to the F portal, and Dalton celebrates, saying that as expected, getting closer to him was a good idea. However, Rawl has a few conditions. He says the first thing is that Dalton will be the only one taken into the portal, with no subordinates or guards. But for Dalton, actually that's better, as he prefers to have fewer people along, and Ashton also asks for secrecy about his going. Yet Templeton doesn't mind either, which catches Rawl's attention, surprised that the kid doesn't worry about anything or suspect bad intentions. And lastly, the young master says he needs to have the Duke's permission, which worries Dalton, who asks what he should do. Ashton says it's obvious and asks what would happen if something were to happen to him, needing someone to deal with the situation. He says it won't be for fun, but rather an official visit, and since he has many knights to look after, he can't handle his personal issues. Then Rawl says goodbye, informing him they will talk again once he gets permission. Dalton is left worried about how he will convince the old man. It's still early and the sky is clear. In an afternoon tea, Philip asks if anything happened at the academy, and Rawl says only that all this attention is tiring. But all of this was expected, and that's why they need to maintain public opinion at the current level. He asks how many people have been sent so far. Bernard reports that in the last 2 days, 100 soldiers were sent as bait, 10 mercenaries were hired, and 20 spies are active. In the midst of the fierce battle among the nobles, public opinion is an important job that must be done to solidify their position. And as expected, searching for the voice of Reuben was a good decision, and by delivering information, it earned them a friendly reputation that spread throughout the kingdom. People may not know the weight and influence the media holds in the Connection. The media in the Connection is an elite organization with many sorcerers, and moreover, one of the 3 great sages, Janice White, is the president of the Press Association. And among them, the most influential is none other than the voice of Reuben. Rawl knows he doesn't have to fight wars only with swords, but should use everything and anything he can. He asks to double the number of wandering mercenaries because sooner or later they will try to bring them down, which leaves Philip confused by his words. Bernard explains that since the situation with the problems has stabilized, the nobles will slowly start trying to get involved one step at a time. The young master says he would welcome them if the portal issue were simple, but there's not much to be done, and the butler says they want to try to tarnish his reputation. And Rawl knows that the crumbs are the only thing they want because no one except the chosen can close a portal. And he asks that this be kept secret for now, and his knight agrees with the order. Even if Ashton has to use the greed of these lords, he needs to gather the soldiers of the kingdom. This is the only way to deal with the crisis that is about to befall the kingdom. Night falls over the kingdom, covering the streets with mist. Someone is running in complete desperation. The man with his tattered cloak appears to be fleeing from something. He never imagined that they would continue to be hunted even after entering a portal and wants to understand what they want by chasing him. For now, the man needs to lure as many creatures as possible to buy time for his comrades to escape, but he is ambushed by 5 hooded figures. The man is the leader of the information organization Wings of Freedom, codenamed Faceless, and the masked figure says it's good to meet him this way. Faceless deduces that they are the ones pursuing the underworld guild, and the masked figure says it's expected of the leader of the best organization to think quickly. He asks if they came there to eliminate him this time. The hooded man says that he had planned to do so at first, but now he wants to make an offer. This makes the leader of the organization curious, but also keeps him alert to defend himself. The masked figure asks for his surrender, saying it would be a waste to eliminate someone powerful, and that if he promises to join their group, his life will be spared. Faceless grabs his dagger while the group waits for an answer. Launching an attack, he tells the masked figure to stop saying nonsense. He defends himself using a gauntlet to block the dagger. This surprises the leader of the organization. That is a power armor. Faceless retreats to avoid taking a blow. He says he was in doubt about it and asks if they are truly the cursed ones from the Empire. With a threatening look, the hooded figure says that's an interesting deduction and then asks if he should call it a dangerous deduction. Ready for the attack, he says that with the man reaching this conclusion, there's no other choice, and the order is to eliminate him. Thus, the leader realizes he is in danger. The hooded figures try to strike him together, but only hit the air. This leaves them confused by the disappearance, wondering if it was stealth magic, but another replies that he used an artifact and asks them to search for him. The leader had thought that the mysterious organization pursuing the guilds was from the Empire, but apparently he was wrong. So he wonders what is happening in this kingdom. Back to Ashton and his men. A guard informs them that permission for the F-rank portals of the Pioneer Knights has been cancelled at that moment. Jake gets irritated, saying that doesn't make sense. Rawl thinks it had to happen and asks about the E and D rank portals. Looking tired, the knight responds that they still have permission for those. The young master asks who will handle the F-rank ones, and although he isn't sure, the man says it's expected that multiple families will take part. This was expected since they are the least dangerous and therefore better for families to show off, and if everything goes well, they can be in a lot. Rawl also notices that the guard captain seems confused and thinks it would be better to earn his trust there. He says that if any problem arises, the man should visit them, and they will have a team ready at any time, leaving the guard impressed. The man says the boy is a fair person and wishes other nobles were like him. Earning his trust, the young master says it's a noble's duty to protect cities and their civilians and that they will work together. Looking scared, the captain says he must be careful with what he says. But he tells him there is a rumor that the Randalls are behind all this, guessing it was the Minister of Finance. He also says that many people in that department are close to the Randalls, including the man he accused. The captain says the young master should know since it seems unusual. Rawl thanks him for the information given. Jake thinks it's an exaggeration and asks what they did to lose the permission, but the master says it was a direct order from the royal palace and must be obeyed. He also says they shouldn't be sad because they won't lose anything with this, leaving the blonde confused. Rawl explains that D-rank portals can be closed by common troops and that sending mercenaries is a waste of money. The boy says that all they get from them are mediocre items, so it's better to focus on E-rank and above, and Jake realizes he's right. Philip then asks what they should do with their men when they leave the F-rank portals, and Rawl orders them to be sent outside the wall for training. The young master says that those blinded by items won't last long and permission will eventually come back since it's not an easy job. And what they need most right now is merit, fame, and growth. Focusing on them, Rawl asks that they pay attention to the command of the mercenaries and their personal growth. In 1 week, the annual ceremony for the inauguration of official knights will be held, and this is the moment for the pioneers to shine. They need to work hard until that day to attract everyone's attention so that even people outside the kingdom will hear about them. A conversation takes place in front of the portal, questioning whether they will come. The guard on the right asks what they should do if something bad happens, and the one on the left says they need to handle the situation. He says they are useless unless they obey those nobles. A troop appears with a guard asking them to step aside. Mounted on a horse is Elson, fourth son of the Carrington Viscounty. The guard Bill says it is an honor to meet him, as he is the current person responsible for controlling the portal. The handsome Viscount asks about the other, and he asks if it's that portal or whatever it is, and Bill confirms that it is. Bazin says the guard's men are in his way and wants an order for them to move immediately. The Viscount says they will enter immediately and orders his people to follow him. Bill asks what he should do with the horse, leaving the Sir confused about what he means. Avoiding conflict, the knight says that if he hasn't hired any men to take care of his men, they will handle it. But that only enraged the arrogant man, who kicks him hard, making him fall to the ground. Irritated, Aeson tells him to know his place and asks how the knight dares to ask him to dismount from his horse. Bill tries to explain the danger of the portal, but the Viscount tells him to shut up, saying he will talk to his captain about it. Angrily, he calls the knight an insolent commoner and orders his troop to follow him. His partner asks if he is okay, but the knight doesn't care anymore since he gave the warning and says it's not his fault if the animals go mad inside the portal. Dazen doesn't know that horses are not allowed inside portals because of the high mana density, and even if they survive by luck, they will suffer greatly. And so Biddle thinks they will be busy moving bodies tonight. The arrogant man asks if that's how it is inside a portal and says he doesn't see anything special. His knight says there are goblins and orcs, but that he doesn't need to be nervous. The son of Viscount Carrington gets irritated because he thought they would find some treasures. Trembling, he thinks about how things would be if that fraud hadn't shown up. And that fraud is Raul Ashton. Asen thinks about how Raul has become a star in the capital by eliminating some monsters using his wealth, and he intends to close the portals and bring him down. He explains to his men that they have to eliminate all the monsters and ask them to divide into units. But Marco disagrees, saying that this idea is dangerous and that they should keep the men together and use scouts to investigate. Dazen asks the guard what he's so afraid of, saying that they don't complete all the portals like that. The son of Viscount Carrington asks what people will think of them if they fail to resolve the problem there. But Marco is worried about something else. He asks the sir to stay behind him. A creature is lurking. Soon, more start to appear. This makes the cowardly Asen tremble with fear. It's Marco who takes the lead and asks the men to stay calm and hold their positions. Then he orders them to prepare for battle.